Chapter 883. After the incident with Chu Xiu, Wei Shiya's heart was really cold. Originally, he thought that even if the Hidden Devil Clan was a group of loose sand, it could still be considered an alliance, right? In the end, he found out later that the entire Hidden Devil Clan couldn't even be considered an alliance. Even if it was an alliance, if the publicly recognized face of the alliance was killed, then they would have to take revenge with great fanfare and regain their face. In the end, Wei Shiya came forward and took out his own treasure in exchange for Yi Xiaonan's help. Only then did the Hidden Devil Clan regain some face. Moreover, that group of people thought that Wei Shiya's clan didn't have a successor, yet they still dared to come after him. This was not just disappointing, it was simply blinded by greed. Chu Xiu was not surprised by this because he had already seen through the nature of the Hidden Devil Clan. However, because of Wei Shiya's painstaking efforts, he couldn't say much. Now that Wei Shiya himself had recognized it, Chu Xiu had no more scruples. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Elder Wei, everyone has their own ambitions. The Kunlun Devil cult has been gone for 500 years. For them, whether it's the Kunlun Devil cult or the Hidden Devil Clan, it's more of a symbol. If they don't want to help, it's useless for you to force them. How many people in the Hidden Devil Clan are willing to help us?" Wei Shiya shook his head and said, "Not many. The Phaseless Demon Sect is one of them, and there are also 2 of my old friends. The rest are like the Scarlet Drill Demon Sect. Most of the time, they are neutral. Qin Chaoxian is someone, but his vision is limited to the Scarlet Drill Demon Sect. The rest, like Umoya and Wuma Xian, who you met last time, can only say that they treat the Hidden Devil Clan as a temporary stronghold. Although they won't cheat you, their minds aren't on you. As for the others, they don't need to think about helping you. It's already good enough that they don't hit you when you're down." As soon as he said this, everyone present was silent. Some of the people present, like Duanmu Qianshan or Lu Fengxian, actually did not know much about the Hidden Devil Clan. They only knew that Chu Xiu was the successor of the Hidden Devil bloodline, so his identity should be extraordinary. But who would have thought that the Hidden Devil bloodline was already in such a rotten state? It was really not easy for Chu Xiu to be the successor. Wei Shiya sighed and said, "Since we all have to exchange benefits, I might as well give it to the moon-worshipping cult. At least they will put in more effort. But now things are a bit troublesome. Yi Xiaonan is currently in seclusion, and it is said that it is a very important seclusion. In these few months, all the affairs of moon-worshipping cult will be handled by Eastern Emperor Tai and the High Priest of moon-worshipping cult. If we go to moon-worshipping cult now, I'm afraid we won't be able to see Yi Xiaonan." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Moon-worshipping cult is always an outsider. We are a bright devil and a hidden devil. Although we can join forces, it is not wise to pin all our hopes on each other." Wei Shiya frowned and said, "But Divine Monk Rama is always a hidden danger. There is no heaven and earth mysterious realm expert in the Hidden Devil bloodline. Once Divine Monk Rama takes action, who can stop him?" For so many years, although the Hidden Devil bloodline was a mass of loose sand, the power gathered by this mass of loose sand was still amazing. There was no lack of true fire spirit refinement realm and real pellet realm. There were dozens of branches. Even if it was an unlucky sect like the Shadow Demon Sect, which only had Mei Qinglian left, it also had a foundation of martial arts. But why did the Hidden Devil bloodline never stand out as high profile as moon-worshipping cult for so many years? Not being united was one reason, but the most important reason was actually that the Hidden Devil bloodline did not have a heaven and earth mysterious realm expert in the past hundreds of years. Although the existence of the heaven and earth mysterious realm rarely stepped out of the pugilistic world, and most of them only existed in legends, the Supreme was the Supreme. He could suppress the world with his own strength, and no one dared to provoke him. There was no such person in the Hidden Devil bloodline. Once they united together, they would be a live target, and it was easy to be destroyed. Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "I will think of a way to deal with this matter. I can't find someone who can match Divine Monk Rama, but it is still possible to find someone who can temporarily block Divine Monk Rama." Wei Shiya looked at Chu Xiu in surprise, but he did not ask much. Next, Chu Xiu directly discussed the strategy with everyone present in detail, formulating how to deploy the forces on his side and how to deal with the people of Sabodhi Zen Monastery when they really attacked. Previously, Chu Xiu was in the dark. The enemy was in the light while he was in the dark. He was the active party. Now that Chu Xiu appeared in front of everyone, he became an extremely obvious target. They could only deal with the situation according to the situation. Sometimes, being weak in strength was so helpless. Before the war started, they had already lost the initiative. The first thing that Chu Xiu paid attention to was the Jianghu Hall. After all, it was the strongest force under his command, and it was also the one that he paid the most attention to. Fortunately, the Jianghu Hall originally had Mei Qinglian and Pang Hu, plus Wei Shuya, so during the period when Chu Xiu was not around, although the Jianghu Hall had some troubles, they were not serious. On the contrary, their strength had increased. Mei Qinglian explained all these to Chu Xiu in detail. At this time, she suddenly revealed a playful smile and said, "That little girl from the Blue Dragon Society likes you." Chu Xiu was stunned. He shook his head and said, "Why are you talking about this? What nonsense are you talking about? You've only met her for the first time." Mei Qinglian stretched out her finger and shook it gently. "A woman's intuition. Didn't you notice that the little girl has been staring at me? I can feel her hostility from far away. It's as if I stole her man." Mei Qinglian shook her head. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "It's normal for her to be hostile to you. Most women will be hostile to you." Mei Qinglian, who had practiced the chick technique, was very attractive to men. If the attraction of the flower ghost granny was superficial carnal desire, then Mei Qinglian's charm was immersed in her bones. This feeling was attractive to men, but for women, of course, it didn't feel good. After all, the same sex repels each other. Mei Qinglian snorted and said, "That little girl, Luo Feiheng, has a good relationship with her." Chu Xiu looked a little strange. Luo Feiheng? She can't even be considered a woman. Chu Xiu knew that this woman, Luo Feiheng, dared to go to the brothel to ask for girls. She also secretly flirted with Mu Zi under his nose. Therefore, Chu Xiu suspected that she had a psychological shadow because of the Luo family's forced marriage, so she had completely changed her sexual orientation. Forget it. Let's not talk about these useless things. After returning to the Jianghu Hall, immediately withdraw all the forces and be ready to take action. Don't care about Xiang Long. Anyway, they have already fallen out. As long as we don't rebel for the time being, His Majesty can't say anything." Mei Qinglian nodded and retreated. At this time, seeing Mei Qinglian leave, Mu Zi, who had been secretly observing Chu Xiu and Mei Qinglian, was relieved. She didn't know why, but when she saw the incomparably beautiful Mei Qinglian, she subconsciously felt a sense of hostility. She had a feeling that she wanted to completely push Mei Qinglian away from Chu Xiu. At this time, Luo Feiheng came to Mu Zi's side again. Mu Zi suddenly asked, "Sister Luo, has this Madame Mei of the Jianghu Hall been with young Master Chu for a long time?" Luo Feiheng was a little curious as to why Mu Zi was concerned about this, but she still subconsciously said, "It seems like it has been a long time. Mei Qinglian used to be Guan Xiyu's wife." Of course, that was only her identity on the surface. After Guan Xiyu died, she followed that guy, Chu Xiu. In fact, in the dark, Mei Qinglian is the saintess of the Yin demon sect. She has a good relationship with Wei Shuya and Elder Wei. She also has a high status in the Yin demon sect. Hearing Luo Feiheng's words, Mu Zi was still a little worried. However, on second thought, although Mei Qinglian was the saintess of the Yin demon sect, she could also represent the Blue Dragon Society. This also made Mu Zi feel a lot more balanced. Of course, the most important thing was that she was younger than Mei Qinglian. Of course, if Luo Feiheng knew what she was thinking, she would definitely be laughed at by Luo Feiheng for being too naive. Some men liked young women, but there were also some men who liked mature women. At this moment, after Chu Xiu finished his discussion with Mei Qinglian, he went to talk to Wei Shuya about asking the Phaseless Demon sect to help. Although the Phaseless Demon sect had always stood on the side of the Kunlun Devil cult, this didn't mean that Chu Xiu could command the Phaseless Demon sect as a successor. As a leader, there must be rewards and punishments. Right now, Chu Xiu hadn't led the Yin demon sect yet. Therefore, if he wanted the phaseless demon sect to help him willingly, he had to show some sincerity. Chu Xiu's sincerity was to secretly help the phaseless demon sect build some strongholds in the northern Yan territory. The phaseless demon sect was deeply rooted in the Yin demon sect. In addition, they had been jumping out to cause trouble all year round. Most of them were hidden, and their sphere of influence was concentrated in the vast eastern Qi. Chu Xiu was the local snake in the northern Yan territory. If the martial suppression hall opened the door for the phaseless demon sect, their degree of hiding would be even better than in the eastern Qi territory. After the discussion, Wuxia asked, "You said that you were confident in dealing with divine monk Rama. What are you going to do? He is a supreme expert in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. You must not underestimate him." Chu Xiu said, "Of course, I won't underestimate an expert of this level. Elder Wei, do you remember what I said before? In the space of the Green Capital, there is someone who has cultivated to the heaven and earth mysterious realm. In that place, it is almost impossible to use Qi, let alone the power of heaven and earth. Even the existence of the heaven and earth mysterious realm can only train their bodies. Do you think that if I bring people out of that place, can they stop Rama?" This wasn't a whim in Chu Xiu's head. When he found out that he could use the heavenly key in his body to pass through the Green Capital space at any time, he had this idea. That old man Shang Tianyang was a genuine expert in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. Wouldn't it be a pity not to make use of him? Chapter 884. When Wuxia heard Chu Xiu's plan, he frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Although there is no problem with your plan, I still have to say one more thing. The hardest thing to control in this world is people. You can use them and they can use you. In short, you have to be careful of anything that is beyond your control." What had Wuxia not seen in his lifetime? He was also worried that Chu Xiu would be at a disadvantage in this kind of thing. Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Don't worry, old man Wei. I know what I'm doing. If I don't have absolute confidence, I won't take the risk." After hearing Chu Xiu's words, Wuxia did not say anything else. Chu Xiu was not an ordinary junior. His achievements even put some of the big shots of the devil path to shame. Wuxia was old and he did things too steadily and not decisive enough. Therefore, he hardly interfered in these matters. He would only remind Chu Xiu when it was necessary to prevent Chu Xiu from going overboard. After arranging everything here, Chu Xiu immediately went to the place where the space was weak and entered the Green Capital. He did not know when the Sabodi Zen Monastery or the Chunyang Dao sect would make a move and whether they would join forces. In any case, he had to prepare everything as soon as possible. He could not waste a single moment. When he stepped into the world full of yellow sand again, Chu Xiu felt extremely uncomfortable. Although the Jianghu in the outside world was also filled with killing and seemed extremely cruel, it was still better than this land of death. In this area full of yellow sand, Chu Xiu had no sense of direction, even though it was his second time entering. However, Chu Xiu had left a mark here before. Although it had been a while, the aura of the mark could still be detected. Following the aura of the mark, Chu Xiu headed in the direction of the mall. At this time, within the merchant city, most of the people were digging and building underground secret rooms. The deepest one was even several hundred feet deep, which was used to prevent the black storm. Don't be fooled by the fact that the merchant city was made of stacked stones. It looked extremely sturdy, but under the black storm, it wouldn't even be able to hold on for a day and would be directly razed to the ground. Only a few dozen feet underground could they resist the powerful power of the black storm. Then, after the black storm was over, they could go back and rebuild the merchant city. This was a foolproof method that the people of Green Capital had used the lives of several generations to exchange for. Of course, the prerequisite was that one had to have enough energy to withstand the black storm. In such a harsh environment hundreds of feet underground, one's energy consumption was dozens of times higher than above ground. Usually, after a black storm, many people would suffocate to death underground. But this time, there was a rare smile on the faces of the people in the mall. Thanks to Chu Xiu's blood recovery pills, the people in the shopping center were confident that they could survive the black storm. Although the people in Emerald City were already numb to death, no one was willing to die if they could live. Shang-Chi and Shang Tianliang stood on the city gate. Shang Tianliang sighed and said, "It's been a long time since I've seen such a scene. Grandpa is old, and the time I can protect the merchant city is limited. I'll leave the merchant city to you. This was originally your father's responsibility, but now it's going to be on your shoulders." Shang Tianliang's age was actually not that old. He had just passed 100 years. In the outside world, people like the old Celestial Master had lived for more than 500 years and were still healthy. But in Emerald City, everyone's lifespan was greatly reduced. The martial artists here were unable to condense a large amount of true qi to cleanse their bodies. On the contrary, they had to greatly overdraft their physical strength. Therefore, martial artists of the same realm had a much shorter lifespan than in the outside world. With Shang Tianliang's current state, let alone 500 years, it would already not be easy for him to live to 200 years old. Shang-Chi's eyes also revealed a touch of sadness. If her father had not died, he would have been able to help her grandfather support the merchant city. At that moment, Shang-Chi suddenly said, "It's all that man's fault for not keeping his word. Grandpa, you helped him kill those people, but he took those pills and left. If he had given us all those pills, let alone this black storm, we would have been able to withstand the next one." At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out. "Little girl, don't speak ill of people behind their backs. I, Chu Xiu, am famous for keeping my word. Since I've promised you something, I won't go back on my word. It's just a matter of giving it to you sooner or later." Shang Tianliang and Shang-Chi turned their heads abruptly. Standing at the entrance of the merchant city was Chu Xiu. The moment he saw Chu Xiu, even Shang Tianliang could not remain calm. "You can still enter Emerald City? Does this mean that you have a secret treasure that allows you to go back to Emerald City at any time, or perhaps a transmission array?" For people like Shang Tianliang who were born in Emerald City, their biggest dream was to leave this damned place. Before, Shang Tianliang had guessed that outsiders like Chu Xiu should have a one-time use treasure that could temporarily break through space. But now that Chu Xiu had appeared here, his previous guess was overturned and he was given hope. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't get too excited, City Lord Shang. I came here this time to fulfill my promise and give you the other half of the pills. Also, I want to make a deal with City Lord Shang. It's not appropriate to discuss it here. How about we go inside?" Shang Tianliang suppressed his slightly excited mood and gestured to Chu Xiu, leading him into the city lord's mansion. Chu Xiu poured out the other half of the blood-restoring pills and said solemnly, "City Lord Shang should have guessed that I am different from others. Others can only enter this place by relying on an artifact that can temporarily break through space, but I can enter this space repeatedly and even take people out with me." Although Shang Tianliang had already guessed this before, when he heard Chu Xiu say this at this time, monstrous waves rose in his and Shang-Chi's hearts. This kind of thing was normal for others, but for these people in Emerald City, it was related to their future and the hopes of their ancestors for dozens of generations. However, after his excitement, Shang Tianliang also calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Take us out. What are your conditions?" Shang Tianliang had lived in this cruel environment for over 100 years, fighting against the heavens and others, so he definitely had a lot of ideas. If they were useless, Chu Xiu would never have appeared here again and said he would keep his word. Now that Chu Xiu had returned, it proved that they were actually useful, and Chu Xiu needed them. Chu Xiu knocked on the stone table in front of him and said, "I have enemies in the outside world, a lot of enemies, and there are countless people who want to kill me." Shang Tianliang nodded and said, "I can see that." Although he hadn't been in contact with Chu Xiu for a long time, he was able to notice that Chu Xiu was a ruthless and cunning person. Such a person would surely be an ambitious and ruthless devil in the outside world. In short, he wasn't a good person. It would be strange if such a person did not have many enemies. "You saw the old Taoist I killed last time. The forces behind him are very powerful, and the forces behind my other enemies are also very powerful. There are even existences in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. I can't fight them head-on, so I want to take you out, City Lord Shang, to help me block them." Shang Tianliang's eyes narrowed, and he was about to state his conditions, but he was interrupted by Chu Xiu. City Lord Shang, there is something I need to say in advance. Although I am here to trade with you, in fact, I have a choice, but you have no choice. If you don't agree with me, you will never be able to get out. I only need you now, City Lord Shang. I don't need anyone else, so I will only take you out. But don't worry, I have brought more elixirs and other resources. Not only can the people in the city survive this black storm, but they also won't have to worry about it in the future. Shang Tenliang narrowed his eyes, and there was a hint of fierceness in his eyes. You are threatening me with the lives of the people in the city. Chu Xiu nodded and admitted it openly. Yes, this is a threat. City Lord Shang, you are already in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. You should know how terrifying this realm is. Your current realm is even the same as your old ancestor 10,000 years ago. But because you are in the green capital, there is no way for you to exert the power of your realm. If I bring all of you out, what if you rebel against me in the future? How can I deal with a heaven and earth mysterious realm existence? I have always been a person who has a good eye for people. City Lord Shang, although you seem to be strict, you care about everyone in the city. Only when these people are still in the green capital, can I feel at ease using you. Shang Tianliang still wanted to say something, but Chu Xiu beat him to it. I know what you want to say, City Lord Shang. It is nothing more than saying that you will definitely keep your word. But sorry, I don't believe you. I will not put my life on the other party's honesty. I can only be at ease if I have something in my hands. But City Lord Shang, you don't have to worry. When I reach the heaven and earth mysterious realm in the future, I will bring everyone in the city out. As long as City Lord Shang helps me block this disaster, I will also bring a portion of the people in the city out. The choice now lies in City Lord Shang's hands. Do you agree or refuse? City Lord Shang, you'd better not choose to use force. You have seen my strength, you can't kill me. Moreover, even if you kill me, you won't be able to find a way to cross this space. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, Shang Tianliang's eyes were gloomy as he pondered. Lu Jianghu, who was in the blood-soul bead, curled his lips. He knew that Chu Xiu was like this. He would not easily trust others. Otherwise Lu Jianghu, would not continue to be tied up here. Now Shang Tianliang was the same. Chu Xiu gave him restrictions and hope, but he did not even give him a chance to fall out. Just as Chu Xiu had said, he was the one with the initiative now. He had a choice, but Shang Tianliang had no choice. Chapter 885. Chu Xiu had always been a good judge of character. Shang Tianliang wasn't a good person. In fact, in a place like Green Capital, there wasn't a single good person. Even a little girl like Shang Qi had blood on her hands. But it was undeniable that Shang Tianliang was a good city lord. In terms of individual strength, Shang Tianliang should be the strongest in Green Capital. If it wasn't for Merchant City dragging him down, he wouldn't have to take care of so many people, and he wouldn't be in such a miserable state. However, he still remained as the city lord, not for the sake of power, but to protect the people in the city. Even the blood recovery pills that Chu Xiu had given them previously were distributed equally by Shang Tianliang to the people in the city. With a long sigh, Shang Tianliang said, "Boy, you're right. I have no choice. I promise you, but I hope you won't lie to me. Otherwise, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let you go." Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't worry, City Lord. You've seen my credibility. As long as it's something that I, Chu Xiu, promised, I will give it to you. I will never go back on my word. This time, I also brought some gifts for City Lord Shang. I believe they will be very useful for the City Lord." With that said, Chu Xiu handed a space box to Shang Tianliang. After opening it, it turned out to be a variety of low-level elixirs, a large amount of food, some metal materials, and ordinary weapons. These things weren't worth much in the outside world, at least for Chu Xiu's family business. But in Green Capital, they were priceless treasures. There was no need to mention the elixirs and food. The metal materials could strengthen their underground secret area to prevent it from collapsing in the black storm. The weapons could also increase the city's current strength. There might be some iron mines in Green Capital, but at this time, who would have the mood to mine? Saving some energy to find food was the key. Shang Tianliang carefully received these things and immediately found a few of his confidants to discuss where these things should be used. At this time, Chu Xiu asked, City Lord Shang, how strong are the other forces like Green Capital? How many existences are there at the same level as you? Shang-Chi glanced at Chu Xiu and said, You want to take advantage of them? I'd advise you to save it. Those people aren't like I. You can easily get hold of them. In Green City, there should be 2 or 3 people who have reached the realm of I. However, I don't know if they're dead or not. The people of Green City don't interact with each other for years, so it's normal for them to die. As for the factions, I'm not too sure. Every day, there are factions being broken up and reorganized. Sects and aristocratic families don't exist in Green Capital. My merchant city can be said to be the largest faction in the Green Capital so far, but it should be the faction that has existed for the longest time. It has been passed down to me for 3 generations. Chu Xiu nodded thoughtfully. In fact, he was just asking. He didn't think of pulling others over. One Shang Tianliang was enough. If he pulled too many people over, it would be hard to control. The strength of Green Capital was similar to what Chu Xiu had guessed. These people were all ancient people. The inheritance in their hands was absolutely complete. Even in this harsh environment, it was normal for a few heaven and earth profound realm experts to appear. After all, people's potential was unlimited. However, in this place, the sects and aristocratic families that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years would not exist. Merchant City could be said to be the most special faction in Green Capital. Only Merchant City preserved the shadow of sects and aristocratic families. For the other people in Green Capital, they just wanted to live. Today, their faction was destroyed. Tomorrow, they would go and rely on others. But for the people of Merchant City, they first knew that they were people of Merchant City. Their sense of belonging to Merchant City was far greater than that of other people in Green Capital. Because of this, Chu Xiu could use the entire Merchant City to threaten Shang Tianliang. Otherwise, if it was someone else who had the chance to go out, why would they care about this? City Lord Shang, we shouldn't delay. It's best that we leave now. I don't know when my enemies will make their move. Shang Tianliang hesitated for a moment and said, Can we leave with Qi? When she was young, I used to take an ancient book and tell her the story of the outside world over and over again. But until now, she hasn't had the chance to see the outside world and what it looks like. Chu Xiu paused for a moment and said, No problem. The entire merchant city was still in Green Capital. As long as Shang Tianliang was still thinking about Merchant City, Chu Xiu would not be afraid of any trouble. After seeing Chu Xiu agree, Shang-Chi's eyes also slightly lit up. No matter how mature and experienced she appeared, she was actually just a little girl in her 20s. After Shang Tianliang gave some orders to some of his confidants in Merchant City, he directly followed Chu Xiu and left. Bringing the 2 of them, Chu Xiu's mind moved, and the sky-piercing key directly flashed a glimmer of light, bringing the 2 of them away from this place. It was the first time they stood in the outside world without yellow sand, and the first time they saw the real blue sky and white clouds. Even though they appeared in a barren mountain with no people, this scenery still intoxicated Shang Tianliang and Shang-Chi. Shang Tianliang let out a long breath and said, Even in my dreams, I never thought that I would actually leave that hell one day. Shang Tianliang was still considered calm, but Shang-Chi had already fallen into a daze ever since she saw the scenery outside. As someone who was born in a place full of yellow sand, Shang Tianliang might have already gotten used to it. However, Shang-Chi was still young and still had some longing. It was just that she did not expect that her longing would actually become a reality one day. Chu Xiu looked at the 2 of them and said, Let's go, the 2 of you. This is just an ordinary barren mountain. The real scenery is behind. With that, Chu Xiu brought the 2 of them all the way to the Blue Dragon Society. Any scenery in the outside world was extremely fresh to Shang Tianliang and Shang-Chi. When they passed by the big cities in Eastern Qi, it was an eye-opener for Shang-Chi. However, she was still rather restrained and did not request to take a look around. When they arrived at the edge of the 100,000 mountains where the Blue Dragon Society was located, the majestic mountains and dense forests still amazed the 2 of them. In the Blue Dragon Society, when everyone saw that Chu Xiu had gone out for a few days and brought back two fellows who looked like beggars, they all felt a little strange. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "This is the helper I invited to resist Rama, Shang Tenliang, and that is his granddaughter. Senior Duanmu, can I trouble you to bring them to wash up first? As long as you can satisfy these two's requests, try your best to satisfy them." Duanmu Qianshan nodded, but at this moment, he was also sizing up Shang Tianliang in astonishment. Chu Xiu said that this person could resist divine monk Rama, but no matter how he looked at him, Shang Tianliang did not seem to be in existence in the heaven and earth mystic realm. When Duanmu Qianshan was sizing up Shang Tianliang also glanced at Duanmu Qianshan. It was this glance that made Duanmu Qianshan feel a slight stab of pain. In the cruel environment of Green Capital, Shang Tianliang had led the entire merchant city through countless battles before he was able to protect his small gathering place. In addition, in the environment of Green Capital where people's lives were not taken seriously, Shang Tianliang's ruthless killing intent was even stronger than that of an old assassin like Duanmu Qianshan. Duanmu Qianshan's heart trembled slightly, and he immediately brought the two of them to wash up and change their clothes. During this period of time, Shang Tianliang was also sizing up the surroundings without saying a word. For a person with a personality like Chu Xiu, he said that he had countless enemies in the outside world, but at the same time, the number of people under his command was definitely innumerable. The Blue Dragon Society before him had already given Shang Tianliang a huge shock. The residents of Merchant City were actually all soldiers. Everyone, regardless of whether they had inheritances or not, did not have any sectarian bias. All martial arts were open to everyone, and everyone could practice them. However, the people of Merchant City only practiced martial arts for the sake of survival. As for the people of Blue Dragon Society, Shang Tianliang could clearly feel their killing intent, as well as their imposing manner. They practiced martial arts for the sake of killing. With such a group of well-trained killing machines, although Shang Tianliang was not clear about the status of Chu Xiu in the outside world, he was sure that they were not weak. After Duanmu Qianshan brought the two of them to wash up, Shang Tianliang and Shang Qi did not have any other requests. They only had one request, and that was to eat. In Merchant City, as the city lord and the only grandson of the city lord, they naturally would not starve to death. However, Chu Xiu had also eaten the pastries made from the Misty Poo tree. It tasted like wax and was simply eating dirt. The desire for good food was something that most warriors did not care about. However, for Shang Tianliang and Shang Qi, it was an existence that could only be imagined in some ancient books. Therefore, under Duanmu Qianshan's strange expression, the two of them ate over 100 dishes in an hour. They looked like the reincarnation of hungry ghosts. A chicken entered Shang Tianliang's stomach in a few bites. Although Shang Qi was a woman, she was not much better off than Shang Tian. Although the pure energy brought by these ordinary ingredients was not as much as a blood recovery pill, the feeling of fullness was something that elixirs could not compare to. Mu Zi, who was standing beside Chu Xiu, was dumbfounded. She said, "Young Master Chu, are you sure that this old man can defeat Luo Mo? I feel that apart from eating a lot, there is nothing special about him." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "I do not need him to defeat Luo Mo. In the entire pugilistic world, how many people can say that they can defeat Luo Mo for sure? I am afraid that even Yi Shaonan would not dare to say that. I only need him to block Luo Mo. That is enough. As for the special part, if he eats a lot, then he is special." With that, Chu Xiu left immediately. Mu Zi asked Duanmu Qianshan in astonishment, "Godfather, what does young Master Chu mean? Why is eating a lot special?" Duanmu Qianshan looked at Shang Tianliang, who was still stuffing himself with food. A thoughtful look appeared in his eyes as he said, "Of course it is special. If it were other warriors, how would they digest so much food? They would have stuffed themselves to death. However, look at this person. Isn't he special enough?" Chapter 886. Just before Chu Xiu went to find Shang Tianliang, the undercurrent in Jianghu had already begun to surge. The vast Sun Peak in Hedong Prefecture of Eastern Qi was where the mountain gate of the Chunyang Dao sect was located. It was exceptionally magnificent. For thousands of years, the so-called vast Sun Peak was actually just an ordinary hill. Until the ancestors of the Chunyang Dao sect established the Chunyang Dao sect in this place. Step by step, they reinforced the mountain peak, carved a formation, and built a large number of Taoist temples, pavilions, and other buildings in it. The entire vast Sun Peak appeared to be dazzling with golden light. It was extremely eye-catching even if it was more than 10 miles away. It was equivalent to the landmark of the entire Hedong Prefecture. At this time, the atmosphere in the Chunyang Dao sect was depressing. Chang Yunzi's corpse was placed in the entire hall. His chest was even pierced by Chu Xiu with the sky-seeking tyrant spear. The corpse was sent by the people of the real martial arts sect. The people of the real martial arts sect could imagine how excited the people of the Chunyang Dao sect would be when they saw the corpse. Therefore, he directly turned around and left after throwing the corpse. Chu Xiu, the Chunyang Dao sect and you are absolutely irreconcilable. A white-haired old Taoist roared in a low voice as if he wanted to skin Chu Xiu alive. The old Taoist's words seemed to have opened a floodgate. In the hall, the group of old Taoists and middle-aged Taoists of the Chunyang Dao sect began to scold Chu Xiu. They looked like they wanted to hack Chu Xiu into pieces. At this time, standing in front of Chang Yunzi's corpse was an old Taoist with messy hair and a gray Taoist robe. He was the current leader of the Chunyang Dao sect, Immortal Shou Yang Ling Yunzi. The sect leader of the Chunyang Dao sect could be said to be extremely low-key. He was the most low-key one among the three great Dao sects. However, it was said that Ling Yunzi was extremely sharp when he was young. He was the number one on the Longhu leaderboard of his generation. He had a fiery temper and abhorred evil. Under the pure Yang sword, all evil spirits would retreat. He had even annihilated a major demonic sect by himself. He had set up the Nine Heavens pure Yang formation with his sword, causing the entire demonic sect to be annihilated. From then on, Ling Yunzi became famous in the pugilistic world. It was also because of this battle that Ling Yunzi inherited the position of the leader of the Chunyang Dao sect. However, for some unknown reason, ever since Ling Yunzi took over the position of Chunyang Dao sect's sect master, he became more and more low-key. Even in the entire Chunyang Dao sect, very few disciples could see him. As a result, this person, who was once ranked in the top 5 on the leaderboard when he was at his peak, had not appeared on any leaderboard for decades. At this moment, looking at Chang Yunzi's corpse, who had died with his eyes open, Ling Yunzi gently stroked his face with his hand, closed his eyes, and let out a long sigh. This sigh immediately made everyone in the hall quiet down and turn their eyes to Ling Yunzi. Do you all think that the Chunyang Dao sect should take revenge? The Taoist priests present nodded in unison. Someone even said loudly, "Sect leader, senior brother Chang Yunzi was killed by Chu Xiu in front of everyone. If the Chunyang Dao sect doesn't take revenge for such a huge grudge, how can the Chunyang Dao sect have the face to stand in the pugilistic world?" Ling Yunzi suddenly raised his head and said, "Does the Chunyang Dao sect only rely on face to stand in the pugilistic world?" The old Taoist priest who spoke suddenly paused, but then he snorted coldly and said, "Face is for others to see, but the Chunyang Dao sect can't just let it go. With senior brother Chang Yunzi's strength, even if he can't defeat Chu Xiu, he can still escape." But why didn't he escape? Because he is the leader of the 6 Temple Guardian spiritual masters. If he escapes, the entire Chunyang Dao sect will lose face. Moreover, if a murderer like Chu Xiu appears in the pugilistic world again, it will be a catastrophe for the entire pugilistic world. Senior brother Chang Yunzi wants to use his life to drag the devil down with him. But now, senior brother Chang Yunzi is dead, but the devil is still alive. If the Chunyang Dao sect swallows this insult, I'm afraid I won't even dare to die because I have no face to see senior brother Chang Yunzi. The old Taoist priest's words were the thoughts of almost all the Taoists present. As soon as he said this, the others also agreed. Apart from Ling Yunzi, the only person who could still remain calm was the junior uncle of the Chunyang Dao sect, Shi Yunzi. Ling Yunzi waved his hand and said with slight exhaustion, If that's the case, then do it. However, the Chunyang Dao sect can't be the only one to do it. Chu Xiu is not alone. The Jianghu Hall, the Blue Dragon Society, the Guanzhong Torture Room, and the entire Yinma clan are standing behind him. If we want to kill the devil, we can't be unprepared. Later, I will ask Shi Yunzi to go to Sabodi Zen Temple. I believe it won't be peaceful there. Alright, all of you can leave first and prepare for senior brother Zhang Yunzi's burial. Junior brother Shi Yunzi, you stay. If it was during normal times, the people of the Dao sects would definitely not ask the Buddhist sects for help. They would definitely oppose Ling Yunzi's approach. However, the people of the Chunyang Dao sect were just a little paranoid, but they were not idiots. It was indeed a little difficult for them to deal with Chu Xiu alone. Therefore, at this time, they could only temporarily put aside their sectarian views and join forces with the monks of Nanman to annihilate Chu Xiu together. After everyone left, Ling Yunzi let out a long sigh and said in a low voice, "Junior brother, do you think I'm very useless? Master named me Ling Yunzi because he hoped that I would have the ambition to reach the clouds in the future and soar to the sky. Later, he gave me the Taoist name Shouyang because he wanted me to guard the Chunyang Dao sect well. In the end, when it came to me, the Chunyang Dao sect was at its weakest in the past thousands of years. In the past, the Chunyang Dao sect was the leader of the Dao sects when it was at its peak. At that time, the real martial arts sect was just a weak branch of the Dao sects. There were only a dozen little Taoists with the surname Zhang in the Longhu Mountain Celestial Master Mansion. They were preaching in the wilderness of West Chu. Now, because of Ning Xuanji, the real martial arts sect became the leader of the Dao sects. Even if Ning Xuanji had disappeared for 500 years, there were still people who remembered the identity of the real martial arts sect. At least, with Ning Xuanji's halo, it would not be a problem for the real martial arts sect to survive for another 500 years. As for the Celestial Master Mansion with the old Celestial Master in charge, the rest of the middle-aged and young people, and the latest generation of powerhouses, it had long become the #1 Dao sects. He had been guarding the Chunyang Dao sect for his whole life, but he had left the Chunyang Dao sect in such a state. This made Ling Yunzi feel ashamed to face his ancestors. At that moment, Shi Yunzi did not have his usual cheeky look. He just closed his eyes and sighed, "Senior brother, you've done well enough. If you hadn't suppressed the old guys in the sect all these years and balanced the forces, who knows what the Chunyang Dao sect would be like now. I haven't had much contact with my chief master, but he has a good eye for people. Since he handed the position of the sect master to you, it proves that you're qualified to take the position." Ling Yunzi closed his eyes slightly and said, "The monks in the Buddhist sects always talk about karma and karma. I don't believe it. How can there be so much karma in this world? But now I believe it. The Chunyang Dao sect has been in the limelight for too long. Maybe even the heavens can't stand it anymore." Face? They still don't understand. To stand at the peak of the martial world, you either have to be strong enough or shameless enough. If you want face without strength, that's just embarrassing. If those who knew Ling Yunzi well in the past saw him like this, they would definitely be shocked. The Taoist sect's true master who hated evil and had a fiery temper in the past had now turned into this dejected look. Shi Yunzi stood up and said, "Senior brother, don't think too much. At least they've grown a little. If it was before, they might still say something like, 'Take revenge on your own, and there's no need to find outsiders to join forces with. I'll run around the Sabodi monastery. Other people want face, but my face is worthless. Not to mention the Sabodi monastery, I'll even run to the Great Light Monastery.'" Ling Yunzi suddenly opened his eyes and said, "In the Chunyang Dao sect, you're the only one who has come into contact with Chu Xiu. Do you think that if we make a move, will we be able to completely get rid of Chu Xiu?" Shi Yunzi stood up and said, "Who knows? If we can calculate such things, there won't be so much trouble. Senior brother, we have no choice. If we don't make a move, the entire Chunyang Dao sect will be in chaos. The habits and tempers that have been accumulated over several generations, my chief master can't control them. You can't control them even after a few decades, and the next generation will probably be the same. Everyone says that the law is natural, but how is that natural? Whether they die or live, we'll leave it to fate. We'll just have to make do with our lives. How can the huge Chunyang Dao sect collapse? After saying that, Shi Yunzi turned and walked out of the Pure Yang Palace, leaving Ling Yunzi behind with a deep sigh. The lethargy on his body became even thicker. Over 10 days later, in the Sabodhi monastery, Shi Yunzi was dressed in a luxurious embroidered Taiji Taoist robe. His hair was combed into a neat bun, and Ancestor Lu's divine weapon, Pure Yang, was hanging on his waist. He had a solemn expression on his face. His appearance was completely different from the sloppy appearance he had in the Chunyang Dao sect. When he was outside, he had to pay attention to his image. Abbot Rama, this is what the Chunyang Dao sect means now. Chu Xiu has a special identity. Touching him is equivalent to touching the entire demonic path. In the past, the eminent monk of your temple, Jingchan Jizong, failed to kill Chu Xiu and resurrect Chu Xiu. Now, it has caused even more trouble. Chu Xiu's strength has increased greatly. My senior brother, Yunzi, died in his hands. Now, Chu Xiu even controls one of the 4 spirits, the Blue Dragon Society. If a sharp sword stained with blood is held in the hands of a demon whose hands are stained with even more blood, the consequences are self-evident. In the past 10 years, the battle between the righteous and demonic paths on floating Jade Mountain was considered a small skirmish. Both sides were probing each other. Although the battle between the righteous and demonic paths in the moon-worshipping sect didn't seem to have a clear winner, it led to the rise of the moon-worshipping sect. So, in fact, the righteous path has already lost. Now that Chu Xiu has risen, it also represents the rise of the Yinma clan behind him. This does not only concern our 2 clans, but also the righteous path of the entire martial arts world. Shi Yunzi said with a solemn expression. So, today, I represent the Chunyang Dao sect to join forces with the Sabodhi monastery and gather the power of both Taoism and Buddhism in the world. Let go of our prejudices and start the 3rd great war between the righteous path and the demonic path to kill Chu Xiu. Chapter 887. Among all the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment cultivators, Rama was probably the youngest. Of course, compared to Shi Yunzi, Rama was still a senior. In less than 10 years, the righteous path and demonic path had fought twice. Now, Shi Yunzi was suggesting a 3rd righteous path and demonic path. Faced with such shocking words, Luo Mo's expression didn't change at all. Looking at Shi Yunzi, Rama said plainly, Taoist Shi Yunzi, please wait a moment. Such an important matter requires our Sabodhi monastery to give it further thought. After Shi Yunzi left, Xiao Mok walked in. His eyes were bloodshot, and he stared blankly in front of him, as if he had lost focus. Can't you see the path ahead even with the eye of the heavens? Rama asked. Xiao Mok smiled bitterly and shook his head. I can't. It's all fog. The heavenly secrets have been completely messed up. Karma and reincarnation. I can't see anything. I wanted to forcefully tear open the fog, but in the end, I paid with my eyes. Xiao Mok didn't care that he had lost one eye. He was also at the true fire spirit refinement realm. His senses were very strong. In addition, he had the eye of the heavens secret technique. Losing a pair of eyes wasn't a big deal other than inconveniencing his daily life. He was more worried about the future of the Sabodhi monastery. He would never forget the scene of Chu Xiu destroying the Sabodhi monastery. He had thought that the matter would be over after Jingchan Jizong killed Chu Xiu. Unexpectedly, Chu Xiu didn't die. It was as if the heavens really wanted the Sabodhi monastery to be destroyed by Chu Xiu. Abbot, what should we do about this? Should we join forces with the Chunyang Dao sect? Rama looked at Xiao Mok and said, do we have any other choice now? Karma and karma. What happened back then was the cause. Since it's already started, we can only bear the consequences. We have no choice. Inform the Temple of Great Light and see if they are interested. Inform all the Buddhist sects in the world that those who are willing to work with the Sabodhi monastery will gather at the Blue Dragon Society in a month. Xiao Mok nodded and immediately went to inform the monks in Sabodhi monastery to make preparations. At the same time, he also told Shi Yunzi about this news. The two sects of Taoism and Buddhism had officially joined forces and announced to the world that they were going to attack Chu Xiu. The moment both sides reached a consensus, this news was directly thrown into the underworld, and it immediately caused a huge uproar. The moon-worshipping cult's righteous path and devil path had only been fighting for a short period of time, but the Taoist and Buddhist lineages had joined hands to prepare for another righteous path and devil path war. However, this time, their target was Chu Xiu, and of course, it could also be said to be the Immortal lineage. Even if the treatment given to Chu Xiu was not comparable to that of Yi Shaonen, it was still comparable to that of the devil path that had been famous in the underworld for the past 500 years. Moreover, the commotion this time was not small. The Chunyang Dao sect, one of the three major Taoist sects, and the Subodhi monastery of the North and South Buddhist sects had joined forces. They had also called upon all the Taoist and Buddhist sects in the world to attack together. This power was enough to make people breathless. Moreover, the Subodhi monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect were extremely domineering when they attacked. They directly announced to the underworld that they were going to attack, and they even told you the time and date of the attack. They were open and above board, and they directly crushed you with force. Even if you tried to escape, they would dig you 3 feet into the ground to find you. There was no conspiracy or calculation. They just attacked directly, but there was no way to hide. This was also the usual style of the Subodhi monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect. For a moment, the underworld surged. In the Temple of Great Light, the seats of the 6 major martial academies and the 3 major meditation halls gathered to discuss whether they should participate in this matter. In all fairness, the Temple of Great Light should go. Chu Xiu had also caused a lot of trouble in the northern Yen land, which made the Temple of Great Light very unhappy. However, previously, Chu Xiu had told the Temple of Great Light in detail about the Northern Yen Imperial Court's attitude. This also made the Temple of Great Light know that keeping Chu Xiu alive was actually keeping the Temple of Great Light as a buffer between the Northern Yen Imperial Court and the Temple of Great Light. The Northern Yen Imperial Court had wanted to attack the Temple of Great Light for a long time. With Chu Xiu around, the Temple of Great Light could feign civility. If Chu Xiu was not around, and someone else came, it might intensify the conflict. Therefore, this was also what the Temple of Great Light was conflicted about. Moreover, Su Ci was still in seclusion, and the Temple of Great Light lacked a final decision-maker. At that moment, Su Du suddenly stood up. It's not good for the Temple of Great Light to go, but it's also not good if we don't go. So, I'll do it myself. Everyone present immediately looked at Su Du in confusion. He would go? They were all fellow disciples, who did not know each other. Su Du had never been reliable. Could it be that he had taken the initiative to volunteer at this time purely because he was tired of staying in the Temple of Great Light? Feeling everyone's gaze, Su Du immediately complained, "I say, what do you all mean by this? Can you not always judge people by their old standards? I also know the importance of this. I am one of the first seats of the 3 major meditation halls. Isn't this status enough for me to go? When the time comes, if Chu Xiu really can't hold on anymore, I'll go and eradicate the demons and unorthodox doctrines, and earn some reputation for myself. If any accidents happen, I'll be responsible for smoothing things over. The worst-case scenario is that I'll be embarrassed, but it's better for me to be embarrassed than for you guys." A strange look appeared in everyone's eyes. They did not expect Su Du to be able to see through it so clearly. Among these people, Su Du was the most suitable. With his identity, he could attack and retreat as he pleased. Most importantly, Su Du's character was already well known. Even if he were to be embarrassed, it would not cause much damage to the reputation of the Temple of Great Light. In the end, Su Yun directly made a decision and let Su Du go. However, looking at Su Du's smug expression, people could not help but wonder if he insisted on going purely because he wanted to leave the temple for a trip. On the side of the real martial arts cult, Lu Changlu directly rejected Chunyang Dao sect's proposal. It was true that Lu Changlu had taken part in the battle between the righteous and demonic path in moon-worshipping cult, but that time, he did not stand on the side of the real martial arts cult, but on the side of the entire righteous path, so he had no choice but to take part. However, the matter between these two sects and Chu Xiu now seemed to be caused by personal grudges. It was better for the real martial arts cult not to get involved in this kind of matter, so as to avoid being implicated by karma. At Longhu Mountain, the Celestial Master Abode also received the news at almost the same time. The current ruler of Longhu Mountain was Immortal Imperial Sky, Zhang Daoling, who was also Zhang Qingzhen's father. This Immortal Imperial Sky was not too old. He was just over 50 years old this year. He looked elegant, and his character was upright and strict. He was slightly pedantic, but he did things in an orderly manner. Zhang Daoling had taken over the Celestial Master Abode for less than 10 years, but he had already managed the entire Celestial Master Abode in an orderly manner. Other than the important matters that required the old Celestial Master to speak, Zhang Daoling could decide everything by himself. His prestige in the Celestial Master Abode was also extremely high. Even people like Xian Longzi, whose strength was far beyond Zhang Daoling, had to respectfully call him senior brother when they met. For such a big matter like this, Zhang Daoling naturally did not dare to make a decision by himself, so he had to consult the old Celestial Master. In a thatched courtyard in the mountain behind the Celestial Master Abode, the old Celestial Master sat in the courtyard and basked in the sun. Beside him sat Xian Longzi and Zhang Qingzhen. Among them, Zhang Qingzhen was holding a Taoist scripture and discussing it with the old Celestial Master with a serious expression. Xian Longzi was peeling pine nuts at the side, and after peeling a pile, he placed them on the tea table beside the old Celestial Master. The treatment was like heaven and earth. Zhang Daoling stepped into the courtyard and bowed respectfully. He said in a deep voice, "Old Celestial Master, Chunyang Dao sect sent news that they have joined forces with Sabodhi Monastery. They have called upon all the Buddhist and Taoist sects to encircle and annihilate Chu Xiu, and even attack the Yinma clan. Should the Celestial Master Abode participate in this matter?" The old Celestial Master laid comfortably on the chair and squinted his eyes. He said, "Do you think the Celestial Master Abode should participate?" Zhang Daoling pondered for a moment and said, "I think we should participate." The Celestial Master Abode did not participate in the moon-worshipping cult's righteous and demonic battle last time because Yi Shaonan made the first move. His strength was too great, and it was not advisable to fight head-on. But the strength of Chu Xiu and the Yinma clan is far weaker than the moon-worshipping cult and Yi Shaonan. If we succeed in this battle, it will increase the prestige of the Celestial Master Abode. It is worth it. The old Celestial Master said slowly, "Dao Ling, do you know why I can live to such an old age, and outlive all the old guys of my generation?" Zhang Daoling thought for a moment and said, "Is it because you have cultivated the Supreme Nine-Dragon Tiger Immortal Scripture to the extreme, and even integrated the Taoist secret scripture, the Great Scripture of Tao, into it, and reached a realm that surpasses the Celestial Master Abode's ancestral master?" The old Celestial Master shook his head and said, "Wrong. That is because I have never meddled in other people's business." Zhang Daoling's face showed a shocked expression. Xian Longzi, who was peeling pine nuts for the old Celestial Master, was secretly laughing at the side. The old Celestial Master flicked his finger, and a small bolt of lightning struck Xian Longzi's head, causing him to jump up in pain. The old Celestial Master glared at Xian Longzi and said coldly, "Continue peeling pine nuts." Turning his head, the old Celestial Master said indifferently, "Everyone says that the Celestial Master Abode is the leader of Taoism, the leader of the righteous path. Don't take it seriously. Throughout history, regardless of the righteous path or the demonic path, the one who wants to be the leader never ends up well. The Kunlun Devil cult used to be the leader, but now it has been destroyed. The real martial arts sect used to be the leader, but they only had glory for a few decades. The Chunyang Dao sect is the descendant of Lu Zhu. They have been glorious for thousands of years, but they are getting worse with each generation. Don't get involved in these messy things. Do you think that your vision is far enough and that you can see the general situation of the entire Jianghu? In fact, as long as you understand your own territory, you will live longer than anyone else." Zhang Daoling was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes, I understand." After that, Zhang Daoling left. The old celestial master turned to Zhang Qingjin and said, "Everything about your father is good, but he is too inflexible. He doesn't know how to be flexible." Xian Longzi grinned and said, "Old celestial master, you are speaking ill of someone's father in front of his son. That is not very nice." The old celestial master did not speak, but gently flicked his finger again. But this time, a purple heaven thunderbolt as thick as a water bucket came crashing down. Chapter 888. Chu Xiu also received the news when the pugilistic world was in turmoil. However, he didn't expect that the first trouble would not come from the outside world, but from his own side. To be more precise, it came from the Yinma clan. Previously, Chu Xiu had already understood the attitude of the entire Yinma clan. In the entire Yinma clan, apart from Wei Shuya's clan, probably only the phaseless demon sect would stand on Chu Xiu's side. As for the Crimson Demon sect, Yu Moya, Wu Mahai and the others, they almost all remained neutral. The overall benefits of the Yinma clan weren't that attractive to them. However, there were still some people who not only didn't think about the benefits of the entire Yinma clan, but also wanted to gain benefits from the entire Yinma clan. When they found out that the Sabodhi Monastery and Chunyang Dao sect had joined forces with the Buddhist sects and Taoist sects to attack Chu Xiu, and even implicate the entire Yinma clan, several big shots of the Yinma clan came to the Blue Dragon Society to look for Chu Xiu. It was as if they were here to denounce him. They came of their own accord. When the news of Chu Xiu's death spread, it was Wei Shuya who informed them. In the meeting hall of the Blue Dragon Society, Wei Shuya sat gloomily. At the same time, there were two people sitting beside him. One of them was Qin Chaoxian from the Crimson Demon sect. He wasn't here to denounce them, but to mediate. In the past, the Crimson Demon sect was also one of the vassal sects of the Kunlun Devil cult. After the Kunlun Devil cult was destroyed, the Crimson Demon sect suffered a heavy blow. Later on, the Crimson Demon sect reduced the number of disciples and eliminated those with average talents. Those who could stay in the Crimson Demon sect were the elites of the elites. At the very least, there were less than 100 people. However, that was when the Crimson Demon sect was at its strongest. For so many years, the Scarlet Drill Devil sect had only focused on their own territory. In Wei Shuya's words, Qin Chaoxian and the entire Scarlet Drill Devil sect still had feelings for the Yinma clan. However, it was obvious that the Scarlet Drill Devil sect would definitely choose the latter when there was a conflict between the interests of the Yinma clan and their own sect. Now, seeing that the anger within the Hidden Devil clan was getting stronger and stronger, and there was even a trend of internal strife, although Qin Chaoxian did not intend to help, he planned to come over and mediate. Sitting on the other side of Wei Shuya was a man shrouded in a black robe. He wore a hood on his head, and his face was always shrouded in a layer of fog, making it difficult to see his appearance clearly, and it was impossible to tell his age. This person was the sect leader of the Phaseless Devil sect, the thousand-faced faceless Renqianqiu. This person's background and strength were extremely mysterious. Even Wei Shuya did not know much about them. However, this person had a great reputation in the Yinma clan. This was because this person had once destroyed the Nangong clan of the previous generation of the 9 great families with his own strength. Although Chu Xiu had destroyed many families, regardless of whether it was conspiracies or head-on confrontations, almost all of them ended with the word kill. However, Renqianqiu was different. He had displayed the secrets of the Phaseless Devil sect to the extreme. He had changed his identity and lurked in the Nangong clan. As a guest military advisor, he had gained the attention of everyone in the Nangong clan. In a few years, he had led the Nangong clan from the bottom of the 9 great families to the middle of the 9 great families. Along the way, he had joined forces and provoked disputes between the 9 great families. If it was not for some accidents that caused the Shangshui Ying clan to stop the expansion of the Nangong clan, and eventually let the other families join forces to destroy the Nangong clan, Renqianqiu might really have been able to stir up a storm in the Jianghu with his own strength. Even in the end, the people of the Nangong clan did not find anything wrong with him. When the Nangong clan was destroyed, they still protected Renqianqiu and wanted him to avenge the Nangong clan. Ren Qianxiu came here to discuss the countermeasures with Chu Xiu, and to support Chu Xiu and Wei Shuya. At this moment, standing in front of Chu Xiu were 3 big shots in the true fire spirit refinement realm of the Yinma clan. In the past, Chu Xiu had only vaguely heard their voices. This was the first time he had seen them face to face. Chu Wuji stood behind Chu Xiu and introduced them to him in a low voice. "Do you see that old man with a dead face who was just dug out of the graveyard? He was the sect master of the Ghost Underworld sect, Sidichi. His Ghost Underworld sect was not ranked in the Kunlun Devil cult, and the ancestors of the Ghost Underworld sect were only in the true fire spirit refinement realm. There were less than 10 people in the entire Ghost Underworld sect, and they were struggling at death's door. However, this old man had recently taken in a talented disciple, and he was showing off. There was also an old woman in a blood-colored robe with a red lotus on her head. Her name was Li Jiaodi, and she claimed to be the successor of the Red Lotus Demon Venerable. In fact, she was just a young mistress of a poor family. She had accidentally obtained a little bit of the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's inheritance, which was why she had embarked on the evil path. At her current cultivation level, she probably had less than 10% of the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's inheritance. How could she be called a successor? This woman had been dumped by a man a long time ago, so she was extreme in her actions and had a sharp and unkind personality. In the entire Inmo clan, no one liked her. If it wasn't for the fact that she had the strength of the true fire spirit refinement realm, and that the Inmo clan was indeed lacking people, they wouldn't even accept this kind of person into the Inmo clan. The last old man, who was dressed like an opera singer and didn't look like someone from the Central Plains, was the Fire Demon Venerable, Kunimo. He was the successor of a branch of the Kunlun Devil cult in the far west desert of the Kunlun Devil cult. However, that branch was once destroyed by those bastards from the Rakshasa sect. The others fought to the end, but Kunmo's ancestor abandoned his fellow sect members and ran away. Those who are not of the same clan are definitely not of the same mind. Those outsiders are just unreliable. After listening to Chu Wuji's introduction, there were only 2 words in Chu Xiu's mind: scattered sand. This was the current state of the Hidden Devil clan. Only a few people, like Wei Shuya, really contributed. The others only focused on their own interests. What difference did it make if this group of people was present or not? There were so many true fire spirit refinement realm and so many martial Dao grandmasters in the Hidden Devil clan. Although they weren't weak, they couldn't even exert 1/10 of their strength in a real fight. Now it seemed that Chu Xiu had overestimated them. Not to mention exerting their strength, they had already developed to the extent of being a hindrance. Wei Shuya said lightly, "What do you guys want by coming here? To help us deal with the Sabodhi Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect?" Siduchi was the first to stand up and said, "Elder Wei, you must be joking. The Hidden Devil clan has enough troubles now. If we rush forward, we'll be sending the entire Hidden Devil clan to their graves." Wei Shuya didn't even look up and said lightly, "Sending the Hidden Devil clan to their graves? This old man has lived for so many years, what kind of storms and waves have I not seen? In the past, situations that were even more severe than this have appeared, and the Inma clan has not been destroyed. Could it be that I can't even get through this little trouble?" Li Jiaodi said loudly, "Elder Wei, even if the Hidden Devil clan can survive this time, can you guarantee that no one will continue to cause trouble next time? It was originally a good thing that Chu Xiu escaped from Jingchan Jizong, but why did he provoke the Chunyang Dao sect? That was the head of the Heavenly Dipper Hall's 6 guardians. Chu Xiu killed him just like that? Do you think you're Patriarch Dugu?" In all fairness, Li Jiaodi's appearance was actually not bad. Although she was a little older, it could be seen that she was also a beauty when she was young. However, her eyebrows were sharp, and her lips were thin and curled up. She was born with such a mean appearance, and her words were even more unpleasant. It was no wonder that she was dumped by a man. In the end, Kunmo didn't say much. He just said lightly in a somewhat clumsy Central Plains Chinese, "Elder Wei, the Hidden Devil clan has always been more than one person. Next time there's such a big matter, can you discuss it with us?" Wei Shuya's expression didn't change. He just looked at Chu Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table. He gently raised his eyebrows and said, "They're here for you. Say a few words." Qin Chaoxian, who was at the side, was a little uneasy. Although he didn't have much contact with Chu Xiu, he also understood his character. He was absolutely unyielding, and there was no such thing as giving in. If Situ Chi and the others had spoken tactfully, it would have been fine. But now they had come to denounce Chu Xiu. They were almost brazenly saying that Chu Xiu had implicated them and the entire Hidden Devil clan. However, before Qin Chaoxian could come forward to persuade them, Chu Xiu had already stood up. He looked at the three people in front of him and said lightly, "Are you all done?" The three people looked at each other, not knowing what Chu Xiu meant. Pointing to the door, Chu Xiu said coldly, "Since you're all done, then get out of here." Hearing this, Qin Chaoxian immediately felt that something was wrong, while Situ Chi and the others all exploded. They were all existences in the true fire spirit refinement realm, the big shots of the Hidden Devil clan. Usually, no matter which family's juniors met them, they would all be respectful. Who would dare to be rude to them in front of them? Situ Chi, how dare you? Li Jiaodi, how dare you? Kunmo, and hashtag and asterisk. A series of Western region words were spat out. Although no one understood them, they were obviously not good words. Looking at the people present, Chu Xiu said coldly, "I've given you face, but you really think you're some kind of senior expert. Do you think you're qualified to represent the entire Hidden Devil clan? In the past, the 9 heavenly demons of the 9 heavenly mountains were the orthodox of the devil path, and Mr. Ren of the phaseless demon sect was also the orthodox of the holy sect. Who do you think you are? I've given you some face, but you still dare to open a dye shop in front of me. You don't know what you're talking about." Chu Xiu looked at the three people below and said coldly, "If the Subhuti Zen monastery attacks, I'll take care of it. If the Chunyang Dao sect attacks, I'll take care of it too. If you want to die, go far away. If you dare to talk nonsense in front of me again, do you believe that I won't kill you as a sacrifice? It's not like I haven't killed people in the true fire spirit refinement realm. Zhang Yunzi just died in my hands. Do you dare to try and see if Zhang Yunzi's skull is hard, or if your heads are iron?" Chapter 889. Chu Xiu's attitude could no longer be considered tough. He simply didn't take Situ Chi and the others seriously. Of course, this was indeed the case. Now, Chu Xiu had the qualifications to look down on them. In the past, Chu Xiu gave them face, not only because he was a junior in the Yinma clan, but also because he needed to rely on the Yinma clan to gain a foothold in Jianghu. But now, as Chu Xiu said, these three people were just poor people. Did they have the qualifications to bark in front of him? At present, Chu Xiu had the entire Blue Dragon Society, the Jianghu Hall, the Guanzhong Torture Room, and Luo Feiheng's 9-branch hall. These forces all listened to Chu Xiu's command. With such powerful forces added together, except for those who stood at the peak of Jianghu, who dared not challenge Chu Xiu, Situ Chi's so-called ghost underworld sect only had 2 or 3 people, and Li Jiaodi was alone. It was said that Kunmo had a few disciples, but not many. With such a force, they dared to stand in front of Chu Xiu and talk to him. They simply didn't know what they were doing. At this moment, Situ Chi and the other 2 were fuming with rage. They were all seniors in Jianghu. In terms of seniority, which one of them wasn't above Chu Xiu? However, this Chu Xiu dared to humiliate them like this. He was simply courting death. However, before they could say anything, Qin Chaoxian immediately stood up and consoled them one by one. "Everyone, calm down. My Yinma clan has already suffered so many disasters. Others haven't even come to our door, and we are already fighting among ourselves. We can only let others see us as a joke." Qin Chaoxian said to Chu Xiu, "Chu Xiu, don't blame Situ Chi and the others for being rude. People of the Yinma clan always speak like this. They are all straightforward. In fact, they are also thinking of the Yinma clan. They have no malice." Qin Chaoxian turned around and said to Situ Chi and the others, "I know you are all thinking of the Yinma clan, but now Subhuti Monastery and Chunyang Dao sect have come to our door. It has already happened. It is too late to say anything." Although he said this, Qin Chaoxian secretly transmitted his voice to the three of them. The three of you, it's unwise for you to provoke Chu Xiu now. I heard that the divine monk Rama has already taken action. I am afraid that Chu Xiu will not be able to resist this time. He can be reborn in the hands of the true fire spirit refinement realm, but can he be reborn in the hands of the heaven and earth metaphysic realm experts? To put it bluntly, I am afraid that Chu Xiu will not be able to survive this calamity. Because of this, if you provoke Chu Xiu at this time, it will only make him more crazy. The three of you, I am doing this for your own good. You did not see how Chu Xiu fought Jingchan Jizong to death. They were really two madmen who did not care about their lives and dragged each other down with them. He is about to die. Do you think he will still care about the rules of the Yinma clan and things like seniority? I advise you to not meddle in these matters as soon as possible. Know when to stop. We can talk about other things later. Hearing Qin Chaoxian's words, the expressions of the three people present changed slightly. It had to be said that nothing was more useful than direct threats of force. Chu Xiu was powerful. It was a publicly acknowledged fact that he could fight an existence at the true fire spirit refinement realm to death. Moreover, Chu Xiu's craziness was also publicly acknowledged. With these two things together, in addition to Qin Chaoxian's words, they were really worried that Chu Xiu would sacrifice them in his madness. Therefore, the three of them did not even say anything harsh in the end. They immediately turned around and left dejectedly. Qin Chaoxian did not know what to say at this moment. He only cupped his hands at everyone present and turned to leave. Wei Shuya raised his head and let out a long sigh. His tone contained feelings of helplessness, disappointment, and so on. At this moment, Ren Qianxiu said, "Elder Wei, you don't have to worry about such trash. If the sect master were to rebuild the sacred sect in the future, he would not even take a liking to them. The Yinma clan that you painstakingly maintained is actually not valued by them at all. What Chu said just now was very true. They are just a group of impoverished people. Do they really think that they are important?" Ren Qianxiu's voice was very magnetic and gave people a very comfortable feeling. At the same time, his tone also contained a trace of arrogance. Although the phaseless demon sect was not considered a direct descendant of the Kunlun devil cult, it was one of the many vassal sects that had the closest relationship with the Kunlun devil cult. At its peak, the phaseless demon sect even had 3 demon envoys of the Kunlun devil cult at the same time. Although the position of demon envoys was only a title and could not command the direct descendant of the Kunlun devil cult, it also represented the attitude of the Kunlun devil cult, an attitude that recognized you. Compared to the phaseless demon sect, the 3 people were standard impoverished people. Wei Shuya sighed again and said, "But this also proves that I is incompetent. After so many years, the entire hidden devil lineage has become like this." Chu Xiu also said, "No, this just proves your ability, old Wei. Without you, I am afraid that the hidden devil lineage would have fallen apart a long time ago." Wei Shuya waved his hand and said, "All right, let's not talk so much for now. Chu Xiu brat, they have already fought their way to our door. Have you arranged everything?" A trace of sharpness flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "The arrangements are almost done. This time, I invited sect head Ren here because I want to trouble the phaseless demon sect to take action." Ren Qianli said, "Chu, you don't have to be polite. You are the person who obtained the sect head's inheritance, so naturally, you are a direct descendant of the Kunlun devil cult. It doesn't matter if Siduchi and the others live or die, but if something happens to you, the phaseless demon sect will not ignore it, Chu. Right now, the various branches of the phaseless demon sect in Eastern Qi have gathered and are ready to resist the attack of the Subhuti Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect at any time." Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "It is such a waste for the phaseless demon sect to use such a powerful force to defend. Why can they attack me, but I can't attack them? The battlefield of the phaseless demon sect is not at the Eastern Qi. Then where is it? The old lair of the Subhuti Monastery in the southern barbarian land." A trace of sharpness appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "Although we are currently at a disadvantage in terms of strength, it is not my style to sit still and wait for death. Attack with attack, kill to stop killing. I want to see who will be the first to give up. Just when Chu Xiu had almost arranged everything, the Subhuti Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect had already made their move. In fact, the speed of these two sects could be faster, but with the edict of the two sects, all the people in the entire Jianghu from the Taoist sects and the Buddhist sects were all mobilized. This number was extremely astonishing. In the Jianghu, there were not only the three major Taoist sects and the Buddhist sections. The mainstream cultivation system in the entire Jianghu was actually the three branches of Taoism, Buddhism, and Demon. Although there were few big sects, some medium-sized sects, small sects, and a group of rogue martial artists, their number was extremely astonishing. Therefore, under the edict, countless martial artists from the Taoist sects and Buddhist sects gathered in the eastern Qi, ready to completely strangle Chu Xiu, the evil demon, with one blow. Maybe they could also destroy the entire Hidden Devil clan. Outside the barren mountain at the junction of Eastern Qi and Western Chu, tens of thousands of martial artists gathered here. A portion of them were people from the Taoist and Buddhist sects, while the rest were here to watch the show. In less than a decade, the Jianghu had consecutively experienced 3 great battles between the orthodox and the demonic. Although the scale of this battle was not as large as the one at the moon-worshipping cult, it was not small either. In the middle of the crowd was a large tent. The martial artists from the Subhuti Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect, as well as Su Du from the Great Light Temple were all here. Besides them, there were also a few monks and Taoist priests present. They were all rogue martial artists or seniors from the Taoist and Buddhist sects who came from small temples or Taoist temples. Although they did not reveal themselves most of the time, at this time, after receiving the edict, their strength was shocking. When they joined forces, they were not weaker than the top big sections. However, due to various reasons, they did not like to enter the big sects to cultivate. They would rather live a leisurely life. They would only take action when something major that concerned the Taoist and Buddhist sects happened. In the past, Ling Yunzi had not been out of the Chunyang Dao sect for a long time, so he was dressed rather sloppily. At the moment, his grayish-white hair was meticulously combed, and the golden Tai Chi Taoist robe he wore was dazzling. He looked like an immortal, but the sharp aura he had when he was younger was nowhere to be seen. Chunyang Dao sect's ancestral divine weapon, Pure Yang, was not in Ling Yunzi's hands, but in Shi Yunzi's. This divine weapon was very strange. Ordinary people could not use it at all. Although Ling Yunzi could use it, he could only barely. This divine weapon was extremely compatible with Shi Yunzi, so Pure Yang had always been with Shi Yunzi. Ling Yunzi said in a deep voice, "Abbot Rama, almost everyone is here. As for how we should act, we need to have a plan." This was a rare occasion for the Taoist and Buddhist sects to work together. However, before they could act, they were also facing problems internally. The Taoist and Buddhist sects could not coexist. Previously, because of their orthodoxies, the Taoist and Buddhist sects had many conflicts. Now that the two sects were working together, not only were the Subodhi Zen Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect not used to it, but the martial artists who had come after hearing the imperial edict were also not used to it. Therefore, before they could act, they had already started fighting among themselves. Fortunately, as people in charge, Rama and Ling Yunzi were sensible people. They would not fight for power at such a time. Rama was very strong, and the other party was also a figure on the sovereign list. Therefore, Ling Yunzi was willing to give the command to the other party. Rama didn't shirk the responsibility. He took out a map and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Azure Dragon Association is surrounded by spell formations. Ordinary people won't be able to enter. Furthermore, I suspect that Chu Xiu has set up a large number of killing formations in the maze. Therefore, everyone from the Taoist sects will be the first to break the formation. The Buddhist disciples will stand guard at the side. We have never worked together before, so there is no need to force ourselves to work together. After breaking the formation, we will fight on our own. This is actually more reliable than arranging a formation." Just as Ling Yunzi was about to nod in agreement, a loud and clear voice suddenly resounded for several miles. "Those who come are guests. Breaking the door is disgraceful. The door has already been opened for everyone." Whether you dare to enter or not is up to you. Chapter 890. Chu Xiu's voice reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The maze that the Blue Dragon Society had set up actually disappeared on its own, revealing the Blue Dragon Society's iconic palace that resembled a majestic azure dragon emerging from the sea. Luo Mo and Ling Yunzi looked at each other with a hint of astonishment in their eyes. Chu Xiu had actually taken the initiative to open the maze. Was he really prepared to fight them fair and square? Where did he get his confidence from? The moon-worshipping church would not make a move this time. Moreover, Yi Xiaonan was currently in seclusion. Apart from Yi Xiaonan, it would be useless for anyone else from the moon-worshipping church to make a move. Ling Yunzi looked at Rama. Abbot Rama, since they have already come forward to invite us, what about us? A faint smile appeared on Rama's lips. Of course, it would be impolite to refuse. As Ling Yunzi and Rama's orders were passed down, tens of thousands of people directly surged towards the Blue Dragon Society. The Blue Dragon Society, which had been sealed off for countless years, was now revealed to everyone for the first time. However, it was in such a way. In front of the Blue Dragon Society, Chu Xiu's blood-red robe fluttered in the wind. Facing the tens of thousands of martial artists from the Buddhist and Taoist lineages, Chu Xiu's expression did not change. Instead, he took the initiative to greet them. I never thought that there would be a day where I, Chu Xiu, would receive such treatment. It seems that everyone can't wait to kill me, Chu Xiu, one day. There were actually more martial artists watching the battle than the martial artists from the Buddhist and Taoist lineages. Seeing Chu Xiu's appearance, they had to admit that, at least in terms of temperament, Chu Xiu was really worthy of his current reputation. He already had the bearing of a big shot in the demonic path. If it were anyone else, they would either be afraid and flee in panic, or they would completely fall into hysterical madness. There were very few people who could be as calm as Chu Xiu. Ling Yunzi looked behind Chu Xiu. His expression was a little strange. He felt that something was wrong. Behind Chu Xiu was Wei Shuya, one of the 5 great sky fiends of the 9th Heaven Mountain. He also had Chu Xiu's good friend, Lu Fengxian, who had inherited the legacy of the devil god Lv Wenho and was quite famous among the younger generation. There were also some people from the northern Yanzhenwu Hall and Guanzhong torture room, as well as people from the 9-branch hall under Chu Xiu's good friend Luo Feiheng. In total, there were more than 10,000 of them. But to be honest, compared to the elites of the Chunyang Dao sect, Sabodhi Monastery, and the Taoist and Buddhist sects, Chu Xiu's subordinates could only be described as a motley crew. How could Chu Xiu resist the joint attack of Taoism and Buddhism just by relying on this motley crew? Had he already given up? At that moment, Rama said softly, "It's not that I want to kill you, but you already expected this day to come, didn't you? You can still be reborn after your body is shattered. This kind of mystic technique is described in some ancient books. I believe that it should be very easy for you to change to a new identity when your body is reconstructed. Chu Xiu is the enemy of the pugilistic world. You should know how much karma you are carrying. Jingchan Jizong killed you, but he also severed the karma on you. Unfortunately, you gave up this opportunity and killed Zhang Yunzi. You have to bear this karma again." What Rama said was actually something that most people in the pugilistic world were puzzled about. Although reconstructing one's body was a little shocking, it was not unheard of. When everyone thought that Chu Xiu was dead, Chu Xiu could totally change his identity and step into the pugilistic world openly. Unfortunately, he did not choose to do so. To others, it was not a wise choice. Looking up at the sky, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Master Rama is right. I do have another choice. It's not that I can't choose, but I don't want to choose. What exactly is a person living for? Some people serve Buddha for life. Some people study Taoist scriptures to seek the great Tao of the world." Chu Xiu pointed at himself and said, "In this life, I, Chu Xiu, only live for myself. Chu Xiu's Chu Xiu's Xiu." Chu Xiu's words were not only said to Rama, but also to everyone present. It was also said to the existence in the dark. Regardless of whether he was Lin Yi from his previous life or whether he had some confusing connection with Dugu Weiwei, he, Chu Xiu was Chu Xiu now. He could only be Chu Xiu. Rama gently raised his eyebrows. This legendary divine monk's every move seemed to have a kind of magical Buddha nature, which moved people's hearts and souls. However, I'm very curious. What are you going to use to stop me today? You can't win against the mysterious heaven and earth. Rama's tone was not arrogant. He was only stating a fact. The fact that Chu Xiu could fight Jingchan Zhizong to death and kill Zhang Yunzi was enough to prove Chu Xiu's strength. However, the mysterious heaven and earth and the true fire spirit refinement realm had always been two different realms. The former was already a supreme existence that stood at the peak of the pugilistic world. Chu Xiu lightly said, "It's true that I can't defeat you, Master Rama. Therefore, your opponent today is not me." As he said that, Chu Xiu shouted behind him, "City Master Shang, stop eating. It's your turn." Shang Tianyang was wearing a brand new black and gold robe. However, he was still holding a roasted chicken in his hand. He kept chewing on it and swallowed it in a few bites. He even wiped his greasy hands on his robe. He did not look like a powerhouse at the mysterious heaven and earth realm. He looked like an old man that was about to starve to death. In reality, that was indeed the case. What was the mysterious heaven and earth realm in a place like Ludu that was like hell on earth? *T. The Black Storm would not let you go just because you were at the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Apart from being slightly stronger, Shang Tianliang was no different from anyone else. Other than thinking about how to live, he also had to think about how to let the people in Merchant City live. After coming here, Shang Tianliang knew that he was here to be a fighter, so he did not ask any questions. He had been eating and drinking for the past few days. In fact, Shang Tianliang was not only eating and drinking to satisfy his insatiable appetite. He also wanted to recover some primordial qi. Although Shang Tianliang was at the mysterious heaven and earth realm, he had been staying in a place like Ludu for a long time. His true qi could not be replenished. Some parts of his body had been damaged, and even his meridians had withered. While he was eating and drinking, Shang Tianliang was also relying on the essence qi in the food to repair the flaws in his body. He did not waste any time. The people around him had strange expressions. Was Chu Xiu going to rely on this old man to resist divine monk Rama? He must have lost his mind, right? Everyone looked like they were watching a joke. Only Rama frowned. After a while, he said in a deep voice, "I don't know you." The others could not see anything wrong with Shang Tianliang. Although Shang Tianliang did not have to worry about the consumption of true qi in the outside world, he still subconsciously restrained the true qi in his body. However, Rama, who was also at the mysterious heaven and earth realm, could see Shang Tianliang's background. There were only a few mysterious heaven and earth realms in the pugilistic world. Even if there were some old monsters who had not appeared in the pugilistic world for decades, Rama could not match up to him. Shang Tianliang grinned and said, "I don't know you either. Are you a monk? Interesting. Very interesting." There might be people who practiced Buddhist martial arts in Ludu, but there were definitely no monks. When everyone opened their eyes, they did not know if they could see the sun tomorrow. You go and tell people that all lives are equal and the Buddha is merciful? Go to hell, you would definitely be beaten to death on the spot. Therefore, Shang Tianliang really felt that the profession of being a monk was very interesting. However, he did not say much to Rama because he knew that he was here to be a fighter. Since he was going to be a fighter, he did not care about anything else. There was only one word: fight. As Shang Tianliang's voice fell, the ground under his feet cracked. His body was like a cannonball as he blasted straight at Rama. Using his palm as a knife, in the next moment, a majestic knife energy condensed around Shang Tianliang. It was as if his entire body had become a knife. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was absorbed around his body. From afar, one could not see Shang Tianliang's figure at all. One could only see the huge knife light slashing towards Rama. Rama chanted, and a strange and profound syllable was uttered. In the next moment, a golden light flashed in front of him. Shang Tianliang's blade slashed on the light screen, and all the light from the blade was absorbed by it. "Break!" Shang Tianliang shouted in a low voice. His hands tore apart. Powerful spiritual energy of heaven and earth erupted from his hands and directly tore the light screen apart. He stepped forward and punched. A majestic spiritual energy of heaven and earth poured into Shang Tianyang's body, causing his punch to be like a spear that could shatter the sky. It was incomparably sharp and extraordinary. In Ludu, Shang Tianyang was an existence at the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Not only could he not use too much spiritual energy, he could not even use a trace of the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Now that he was in the outside world, Shang Tianyang finally understood what true power was. This was the power of the Shang ancestors as described in the ancient books. This was also the power realm that he should be at. In Ludu, Shang Tianyang did not like to fight. It should be said that every person in Ludu did not like to fight. However, their killing intent were stronger than anyone else's. This was because it was not a battle, but a life of life and death. However, after fighting with Rama this time, Shang Tianyang understood what true fighting intent was. Facing the spear that seemed like it could pierce through the sky, Rama used the flower-picking seal. The seemingly weak Buddhist seal caused the huge spear that Shang Tianyang had condensed to start shattering. Rama gently tapped Shang Tianyang's fist with a finger. However, Shang Tianyang's entire body was blasted away. He smashed into the ground and created a huge pit that was more than 30 meters wide. The Buddha used the flower-picking seal. All the magical powers were hidden in silence. Although Rama seemed to have blasted Shang Tianyang away easily, in the next moment, Shang Tianyang had already climbed out of the pit. He was not injured at all. He even shouted, "Awesome!" In the next moment, his figure appeared in front of Rama again. His hands were like dragon claws that tore through everything. He continued to attack Rama. Chapter 891. In the fight between Shang Tianyang and Luo Mo, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Luo Mo had the absolute advantage. Moreover, in the green dew space, Shang Tianyang had not even fought with people of the same realm. After all, there were only 2 or 3 people who could reach the mysterious realm in that place, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Even when fighting with Luo Mo, Shang Tianyang was filled with an extremely uncomfortable feeling. This was the first time he had fought in a place with such an abundance of heaven and earth essence. This made it extremely difficult for him to unleash his strength. Therefore, everyone could only see that every time Shang Tianyang charged forward with an extraordinary aura, he would be sent flying by Luo Mo. However, as the fight went on, Luo Mo frowned slightly. This existence in the mysterious realm in front of him was very strange. His opponent's martial arts skills were extremely shaky, and his fighting style was also extremely strange. In any case, he was not considered strong. At least, among all the mysterious realm experts that Luo Mo knew, this person's strength should be the lowest. However, there was one thing that was extremely difficult to deal with, and that was that he was very resistant to beatings. That's right. Compared to Luo Mo and the other mysterious realm experts, Shang Tianyang's only advantage was his resistance to beatings. In a place like Green Dew, Shang Tianyang had constantly tempered his body. It could be said that even if he did not deliberately cultivate a body-refining technique, in terms of the strength of his body, not many people could surpass Shang Tianyang. In addition, Shang Tianyang's willpower and physique had been tempered in an extremely harsh environment. Even though Shang Tianyang's combat strength was much lower than Luo Mo's, it was still impossible for Luo Mo to defeat Shang Tianyang in a short period of time. At that moment, among the spectators, there were 2 people looking at Shang Tianyang in shock. These 2 people were Eastern Chi's LV Zhanlu and White Tiger Hall's Helian Changfeng. LV Zhanlu even shouted in a low voice, "Lunatic! Chu Xiu is a lunatic!" Others might not know Shang Tianyang, but LV Zhanlu and Helian Changfeng knew him. They never thought that Chu Xiu would actually be able to enter that place again and bring out the people from that space. The last time they entered Green City, they were just passers-by. They didn't carefully investigate Green City's roots like Chu Xiu did. However, they were able to guess that none of those who were able to grow up in an extremely adverse environment like Green City were easy to deal with. Once this group of people escaped, The sudden appearance of such a force would definitely be a huge blow to the current Jianghu. Chu Xiu was definitely a madman. For his own benefit, what else could he not do? When the other Taoist and Buddhist cultivators saw how intense the fight between Rama and Shang Tianliang was, they roared and wanted to start the fight immediately. Ling Yunzi sighed and waved his hand. The people of Chunyang Dao sect immediately quietened down. Looking at Chu Xiu, Ling Yunzi said in a low voice, "Actually, I don't like senior brother Zhang Yunzi because he is too strict. I remember when we were young, senior brother Zhang Yunzi was in charge of watching over us when we were writing Dao scriptures from memory. If we made a mistake, we would get hit with a board. Later on, I became the sect leader of Chunyang Dao sect and my status was finally higher than senior brother Zhang Yunzi's. However, I still don't like him because he represents the most paranoid and decadent side of Chunyang Dao sect." The other disciples of Chunyang Dao sect looked at each other. They didn't know why the sect leader would criticize their own people in front of Chu Xiu. However, Ling Yunzi changed the topic. He slowly pulled out the Dao sword that was flickering with pure yang qi and said in a low voice, "However, senior brother Zhang Yunzi is senior brother Zhang Yunzi after all. He is my senior brother and the leader of the 6 spiritual masters of Tiangang Hall of Chunyang Dao sect. You should know how the entire Chunyang Dao sect will react after you kill him. Sometimes, there is no right or wrong in the pugilistic world, only what should be done and what should not be done. I haven't been out in the pugilistic world for decades. Today, I want to see what the young heroes who stand at the peak of the pugilistic world look like. I want to see if there are really talented people in every generation and the new generation surpasses the old." As Ling Yunzi's voice fell, the glaring pure yang qi around him rose into the air. It was as if he had returned to the days when he was young, when he had destroyed a large devil sect with his own strength. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and also took out the heavenly war case. With a slight sound of gears, the heavenly war case instantly turned into the peerless heavenly saber. Ling Yunzi was somewhat beyond Chu Xiu's expectations. In his imagination, Chu Xiu thought that Ling Yunzi should be the same kind of person as Zhang Yunzi. However, when he saw Ling Yunzi, Chu Xiu realized that he was wrong. The other party was not Zhang Yunzi, but a person who understood. He knew where the real shortcomings of Chunyang Dao sect were, but he couldn't change it. That was because in the entire Chunyang Dao sect, the powerful people were all stubborn and rotten like Zhang Yunzi. Not only could he not change Chunyang Dao sect, but he also had to follow the rules of Chunyang Dao sect. For example, today, as the sect master of Chunyang Dao sect, he had to stand here and fight with Chu Xiu. Otherwise, Chunyang Dao sect would definitely fall into more internal strife because of personal feelings. Just as Ling Yunzi said, for Ling Yunzi, there was no right or wrong in this battle. There was only what should be done and what shouldn't be done. The situation had already reached this point, and it was too late for both sides to retreat. Therefore, while holding the peerless heavenly saber, Chu Xiu only spat out one word, "Kill." As soon as he said that, Wuxia and the others behind Chu Xiu all rushed out. At that moment, the internal array of the Blue Dragon Society had already been activated. Green radiance circulated, and with a dragon's roar, the green brilliance struck down like thunder. A unity of heaven and man realm martial artist who couldn't dodge in time was directly vaporized by the green radiance, leaving not even a trace behind. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. None of them could have imagined that the Azure Dragon Society's spell formation would be this powerful. At this moment, everyone recalled the roots of the Blue Dragon Society. It was a part of the Four Symbols sect in the past, and the place where the Blue Dragon Society was located was the ruins of the Four Symbols sect in the past. Since ancient times, when it came to array Dao, if the Black Tortoise branch of the Four Symbols sect claimed to be the best, no one would dare to say that they were second. After the great calamity of the ancient times, the array at the headquarters of the Blue Dragon Society had actually been almost destroyed. Thankfully, the forefathers of the Azure Dragon Society were far-sighted. They invited the Formation Dao Grandmasters of the Black Tortoise Society to repair the Azure Dragon Society's formations. After several generations of effort, they were finally able to restore the Azure Dragon Society's formations to their former glory days. Among the 4 spirits, only the Blue Dragon Society had a grudge against the White Tiger Hall. As for the Black Tortoise Sect and the Vermilion Bird Pavilion, one only liked to set up arrays and refine various mechanical parts, while the other only knew how to refine medicine. Therefore, they didn't have any grudges against each other. As the #1 assassin organization in the world, the Blue Dragon Society had a deep financial foundation, so they could afford to invite the Black Tortoise Sect to help them so many times. Over the years, the Blue Dragon Society had killed countless people. Although they were only hired assassins, there were still some sects that hated the Blue Dragon Society to the bone. After so many years, the Blue Dragon Society hadn't been annihilated, and it could be said that the array was a big part of the reason why the Blue Dragon Society hadn't been wiped out. Originally, Chu Xiu's side was in an absolutely disadvantageous situation, but with the help of the array, he wouldn't be defeated for a while. At this time, in the field, Ling Yunzi's body was shining with dazzling pure yang astral energy. He walked towards Chu Xiu step by step, and with every step, the pure yang astral energy under his feet was dazzling, but there was also the radiance of the stars shining, as if he was connected to the stars in the sky, condensing a layer of resplendent starry veil around Ling Yunzi. Astral steps. Lu Jiang, he called out in a low voice from the blood soul bead, and with a solemn expression, he said, "Chu Xiu kid, be careful. The strength of this Taoist isn't that simple. Astral steps, worship the radiance of the Big Dipper, and welcome the power of the gods of the stars. This is a secret technique of Taoism, and there have been many similar techniques among the branches of Taoism, but there aren't many that can really attract the power of the gods of the stars." Without Lu Jiang he saying it, Chu Xiu also knew that the strength of the Chunyang Dao sect's sect leader, who hadn't come out for decades, was infinitely close to the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm. Ling Yunzi slashed down with the pure yang as the sun, and the radiance of the stars circled around him. His entire body was like heaven and earth. That slash wasn't a murderous intent, but a kind of Dao operation rule between heaven and earth. It was like Dao connotation, but it could modify the rules within a few miles. In an instant, Chu Xiu's body was already pitch black, and only the great sun and the radiance of the stars were rotating in front of him, crashing down on him. Chu Xiu also didn't expect Ling Yunzi's strength to be at such a level. When he attacked, he already had a bit of the aura of a heaven and earth elemental enlightenment expert who could control the power of heaven and earth. With a low shout, the peerless heavenly blade slashed down, and the endless demonic chi sword radiance scattered in all directions. The sea-breaking blade fell, and the extreme strength of the blade was even a little too much for the heavenly Dao warcase to bear, and there was a strange sound of mechanical movement. The blade of the 7 limits tore the darkness in front of him apart, and the demonic chi and the pure yang chi intertwined and constantly exploded in midair. At this time, Ling Yunzi made a Taoist seal with his hand, and a strange syllable came out of his mouth. Taoist patterns appeared in the starry sky, and layer after layer suppressed Chu Xiu's body, instantly extinguishing the demonic chi around him. In less than 3 moves, Chu Xiu had already fallen into an absolute disadvantage. The surrounding people who were watching the battle were also amazed. Some of the older martial arts practitioners still vaguely remembered how amazing the leader of the Chunyang Dao sect, Ling Yunzi, was when he was young. Unfortunately, after taking over the position of the leader, he became more and more low-key, and even didn't appear in Jianghu anymore. However, it seemed that the past few decades didn't erase Ling Yunzi's talent and combat strength. Instead, it increased his realm by another half a step. It was estimated that it wouldn't take long for another supreme expert of the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm to appear in the Dao sect. At this time, Chu Xiu could only consider himself unlucky to encounter Ling Yunzi at his peak. Chapter 892. Even Chu Xiu had no choice but to admit that Ling Yunzi's strength was almost unparalleled. He had half a foot in the threshold of the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Chu Xiu had fought with the warriors of the Chunyang Dao sect many times, so he had a better understanding of the warriors of the Chunyang Dao sect. For example, Zhang Yunzi was a standard warrior of the Chunyang Dao sect. His cultivation was above the word pure yang, and he had exerted the power of the pure yang gang qi to the extreme. Ling Yunzi's pure yang gang qi was not inferior to Zhang Yunzi's, but he was stronger than Zhang Yunzi in his comprehension of the word Dao. The Dao lineage cultivated the truth of the great Dao of heaven and earth, yin and yang, and all things. The pure yang lineage exerted the power of yang to the extreme, but the power of yang was also a kind of great Dao. Ling Yunzi's comprehension of the pure yang Dao was close to the level of returning to the natural state. If he comprehended the Dao, all the Daos would be in his heart. However, no matter how strong Ling Yunzi was, Chu Xiu would not allow himself to be captured. Moreover, Ling Yunzi was not strong enough to make Chu Xiu have no room to resist. The moment he was suppressed by the Dao power, Chu Xiu's body shone with endless blood qi, and the sky was filled with blood shadows that rushed toward Ling Yunzi. Chu Xiu had evaluated the blood shadow great technique as being extremely powerful among warriors of the same level, but its power would be greatly reduced when facing warriors who were stronger than him. Therefore, it was a martial technique with extremely low growth potential. However, although Ling Yunzi was strong, he had not reached the mysterious heaven and earth realm. The sky full of blood shadows attacked with all kinds of cultivation techniques, and the power was even more wild in the endless blood light. However, Ling Yunzi only gently stretched out a finger, and a golden light bloomed. The next moment, the golden light turned into scorching pure yang gang qi, and like the sun, it swallowed all the blood shadows. However, at this moment, as the blood shadows scattered, a small transparent figure directly attacked Ling Yunzi. It turned out to be a small person the size of a palm, holding a long saber. It was the figure of Chu Xiu. The small person carried an extremely strong primordial spirit pressure, and instantly passed through the pure yang gang qi. When Ling Yunzi reacted, it was already above his head. All along, everyone had been attracted by Chu Xiu's extremely powerful martial skills. After successfully cultivating the true fire body, everyone knew that Chu Xiu's physical body was extremely powerful. Therefore, many people had forgotten that Chu Xiu's attainment in primordial spirit's secret techniques. The small person was formed from the purest power of the primordial spirit. There were no transformations at all. When the primordial spirit slashed down, Chu Xiu was betting on the fact that Ling Yunzi's primordial spirit was not as strong as his. In an instant, endless starlight shone in front of Ling Yunzi, but it was shattered layer by layer in front of the Qi's qi. Obviously, the star god's qi could not withstand such a strong primordial spirit power. Moreover, the primordial spirit was invisible, and it was extremely fast. Even if Ling Yunzi wanted to dodge, he could not. He sighed and pinched a seal with both hands. In his mind, endless pure yang gang qi bloomed, and the shadow of a sitting golden Taoist appeared. The golden light shone brightly, but this was not just pure yang gang qi, but also pure primordial spirit power. The battle of primordial spirit was more dangerous than the battle of ordinary gang qi and physical body. Strong primordial spirit fluctuations erupted because of the collision, and the incomparably strong force even formed a silent sound wave. The sound was so loud that some of the spectating martial artists even let out muffled groans, their minds shaken by this wave. Under the collision of primordial spirits, Chu Xiu's face turned pale, but he also took the opportunity to break free from the suppression of those Dao patterns. With both hands forming a seal, pure devil qi erupted from Chu Xiu's hands, and a devil qi longbow condensed in his hands. With one hand holding the bow and the other holding the bowstring, the triple city extinguishing arrow burst out in an instant. Moreover, this was not the end. The moment the triple city extinguishing arrow was shot, the heavenly Dao war case in Chu Xiu's hand shook and turned into the Ask the Heavens Tyrant Spear. The dense true fire of inner qi burned around Chu Xiu's body. When he thrust out his spear, he did not use the spear technique of the Black Tortoise True technique. Instead, he used pure strength, as if he wanted to tear the heavens apart. The pure Yang Dao sword in Ling Yunzi's hand slashed down horizontally. His movements were extremely slow, but there seemed to be countless afterimages. In the next moment, the afterimage transformed into 64 swords condensed from pure yang astral energy, forming a pure yang sword formation. Just as Chu Xiu's triple-link city annihilation arrow was about to land, it enveloped him within. The powerful pure yang astral energy completely negated the triple-link city annihilation arrow's power of nirvana. In the past, Dugu Weiwei could destroy the entire Iron Emperor castle with this arrow, but that was because Dugu Weiwei had enough power to drive the almost endless power of nirvana. Now, although Chu Xiu's arrow was still overbearing, the power of nirvana was not endless. Under the strangulation of the pure yang sword array, it was constantly being reduced. Ling Yunzi took a step forward, and his sleeves covered the sky. With a sudden swing, he felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. With a loud bang, it landed on Chu Xiu's heaven-seeking tyrannical spear. The heaven-seeking tyrannical spear formed by the heavenly Dao war case was smashed into pieces by the sleeves. Chu Xiu waved his hand, and countless mechanisms condensed into a long halberd in his hand. The great halberd smashed down crazily, but Ling Yunzi did not have a sword in his hand. He actually used his fists and feet to fight against Chu Xiu's strong body that had been tempered by the true fire. Even though Chu Xiu's black tortoise true technique was ever-changing, he still could not do anything to Ling Yunzi. The battle between Chu Xiu and Ling Yunzi attracted almost everyone's attention. The battle between the two of them was what could be called exciting. Although Rama and Shang Tianliang were both at the mystic enlightenment realm, the battle between the two of them was actually quite boring. It was almost like a mad rush, then being slapped away, and then continuing to rush forward. On the other hand, the battle between Chu Xiu and Ling Yunzi seemed to have unleashed all kinds of martial arts in the world to the extreme. Chu Xiu's current combat power could no longer be measured by the realm. Moreover, he had so many powerful martial arts, it was simply shocking. However, what was even more shocking was Ling Yunzi's side. When it came to martial arts, he had cultivated his extremely powerful pure yang gang qi and various Dao sect secret techniques to the extreme. He could completely crush Chu Xiu with just his strength. On the other hand, Chu Xiu took a different approach. He directly used the power of his primordial spirit to fight head-on, and Ling Yunzi was also not afraid. Although he had not cultivated the primordial spirit secret technique, the pure yang gang qi of Chunyang Dao sect could automatically strengthen his primordial spirit while he was cultivating. No matter what Ling Yunzi's realm was, he would not be at a disadvantage if he fought head-on with the primordial spirit. However, what was even more surprising was that although Ling Yunzi's close combat attacks were not as varied as Chu Xiu's black tortoise true technique, his physical strength was also extremely shocking. Ling Yunzi's physical strength was also extremely shocking. Simply put, this person was an existence with no weaknesses. While Chu Xiu and Ling Yunzi were fighting intensely, the other people on the battlefield were not idle either. Although there were fewer people on Chu Xiu's side, their quality was not bad. For example, Wei Shia, Elder Wei. In the past, as one of the 5 great sky fiends of the 9th Sky Mountain, Wei Shia was only a supporting character in the battle. His strength was also the weakest. It was only because they were like-minded that he became sworn brothers with the other 4. However, so many years had passed. Although Wei Shia's cultivation had not reached the realm of Donghuang Tai, it was not too far away. In particular, his demonic arts inheritance was passed down to him by the other 4 of the 5 great sky fiends of the 9th Sky Mountain. Although Wei Shia was now old and his qi and blood had stagnated, he would probably never be able to step into the mysterious heaven and earth realm in his lifetime. However, among those of the same level, there were still few who could match him. At that moment, Wei Shia was surrounded by domineering demonic qi. He was fighting alone against 3 true fire spirit refinement realm martialists from Subodhi Zen Temple. Previously, Wei Shia had not fought many times. Even during the great battle on Floating Jade Mountain, he had not used his full strength. It was only now that Wei Shia was fighting with his full strength that people could see how terrifying this person, who had been so famous in the past, was. Wei Shia used several demonic arts one after another, and it was a feast for the eyes. Moreover, Wei Shiya's martial arts did not actually require weapons. However, at that moment, 3 weapons appeared in his hands one after another. The demonic sword was swung freely, and as the sword chi was wantonly, it seemed to cut through the void. As the demonic sword slashed down, it could be said to be domineering. An extremely powerful aura erupted from his seemingly frail body. Finally, the demonic spear shattered the sky, and that spear directly shattered one of his opponent's arms. Only some of the older martialists present could recognize that the weapons that Wei Shiya was using were the weapons of 3 of the 5 great sky demons of the 9 Sky Mountain. One of them did not use a weapon, and he was proficient in primordial spirit's secret techniques. It could be said that Wei Shiya's existence was a continuation of the 5 great sky demons of the 9 Sky Mountain. He alone contained so many martial arts, and over the years he had probably mastered and integrated all these martial arts into one. If one said that Chu Xiu's Black Tortoise True technique had been forcibly integrated by that ancient martialist with his extremely strong martial arts attainments, then Wei Shiya's current existence was a continuation of the 5 great sky demons of the 9 Sky Mountain. Right now, Wei Shiya was relying on his longing for his 4 brothers and sheer willpower to treat their martial arts legacies as his own, forcefully merging them into his body. Wei Shiya did not rely on comprehension, but perseverance. It could even be said that if he had not chosen to integrate the martial arts of his 4 brothers back then and had instead focused on studying his own martial arts, he might have been able to break through to the mysterious heaven and earth realm by now. Moreover, in the entire Yinma lineage, not only Wei Shiya was outstanding, but the people that Wei Shiya valued were also outstanding. This was the case with Chu Wuji. Chu Wuji's previous strength had reached the half-step real fire spirit refinement. He was definitely a top existence among the martial arts grandmaster. At this time, Chu Wuji also began to fight desperately. He actually took the initiative to find an old Taoist of Chunyang Dao sect. He fought real fire spirit refinement with real pellet state, and they were evenly matched. Chapter 893. Before Chu Xiu appeared, Wei Shiya focused on training Chu Wuji in the Yinma clan. However, compared with Chu Xiu, Chu Wuji had a shortcoming, that was, he was not the orthodox descendant of the Yinma clan. Therefore, Chu Wuji could only be Wei Shiya's subordinate. He couldn't become the heir of the entire Yinma clan, and he couldn't be the face of the clan. Although the Yinma clan had little to do with the Kunlun devil cult now, the title was the title. If you didn't have this title, you couldn't sit in this position. But Chu Xiu was different. Although his identity as the orthodox descendant of the Kunlun devil cult was subject to discussion, at least it was recognized by everyone. Of course, Chu Wuji didn't want this position. He was a sensible person. After joining the Yinma clan, he saw the essence of the Yinma clan. Therefore, in the entire Yinma clan, he was only loyal to one person, Wei Shiya. Chu Wuji wasn't risking his life here for Chu Xiu. Rather, it would be more accurate to say that he was fighting for Wei Shiya. He was fighting for the benefits of Wei Shiya's bloodline. And right now, Chu Xiu was representing his bloodline. As a real pellet state, he fought against the real fire god refinement state. Chu Wuji was suppressed from the beginning to counterattack. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that if this person didn't die after this battle, he would definitely reach the real fire god refinement state. In addition to Wei Shiya, Lu Fengxian's performance was also extremely outstanding. Lu Fengxian's opponent was the junior's junior uncle Shi Yunzi of Chunyang Dao sect, who was the youngest disciple in the entire Chunyang Dao sect. Shi Yunzi's strength was originally unfathomable, and no one even knew that he had advanced to the real pellet state. For so many years, not only the people of Jianghu, but even the people of Chunyang Dao sect didn't know much about Shi Yunzi's strength. They all thought that the previous sect master was old and confused, so he accepted Shi Yunzi as his disciple before he died. In the end, when Shi Yunzi revealed his true strength, everyone was convinced of his strength. This person actually had a pure Yang Dao body, which was why he was more compatible with the pure Yang divine weapon. Even if he did not cultivate all day long, as long as he stayed in the atmosphere of the Chunyang Dao sect, his pure yang qi would automatically accumulate and his cultivation would gradually increase. It was just like cheating. Of course, Lu Fengxian was cheating even more than Shi Yunzi. Sometimes, luck itself was the greatest cheating method. These two people could be said to be the kind of existence that couldn't be measured by common sense. One of them held the pure yang divine weapon of the former ancestor Lu, and the other held the unparalleled divine weapon of the ancient demon god Lu Wenho. Even their external divine weapons were extremely similar. Therefore, when these two people fought, they even displayed a power that made most of the true fire spirit refinement state cultivators feel ashamed. However, after the two sides fought for a long time, it was still Lu Fengxian who had the upper hand in the end. It was not because Shi Yunzi's cultivation was weak, nor was it because the pure yang divine weapon was not as good as the unparalleled divine weapon, but because Shi Yunzi's fighting intent could not be compared with Lu Fengxian. Looking at Lu Fengxian, who was wielding the unparalleled divine weapon and exerting the power of the demon god unparalleled halberd to the extreme, even his handsome appearance began to distort in the boundless demonic qi. Shi Yunzi was forced to retreat step by step. His hands were numb, but he could only smile bitterly. Lu Fengxian's fighting intent was unparalleled, but Shi Yunzi had no fighting intent. To be more precise, this battle should not have been fought in the first place. What was the current state of the Chunyang Dao sect? It was the weakest period in thousands of years. There was no new generation to take over, and the future was unclear. At times like this, the Chunyang Dao sect should have kept a low profile and accumulated its own strength so that it could plan for the future. In the end, as the leader of the 6 spiritual masters, Chang Yunzi became enemies for no reason, and in the end he was killed. His death had indirectly agitated everyone in the pure Yang Daoist sect. They had no choice but to launch the righteous and demonic wars to kill Chu Xiu. Ling Yunzi was a sensible person, and so was Shi Yunzi. They were forced to participate in this war, and they had to fight even if they did not want to. On the other hand, on Chu Xiu's side, he swore to protect his own strength, and Chu Xiu was Lu Fengxian's brother who had gone through life and death together. How could he not fight to the death for Chu Xiu? It could be said that the will of the two sides were not even on the same level. It was too difficult to make Shi Yunzi as passionate as Lu Fengxian. Among the crowd, they were also surprised to see the strength that Lu Fengxian had displayed. In fact, this person was not very outstanding among the young generation. Although he had the inheritance of Marquis LV Wenho, there were too many monstrous talents in Chu Xiu's generation. Just Chu Xiu, Zhang Qingzhen, and Zhong Xian alone had attracted the attention of most people. There was also Ying Bailu, the unparalleled young master who kept a low profile but was even more famous, and Fang Qishao, the sword Dao genius. Lu Fengxian had never fought for it, and his reputation had always been built naturally. It was not until now that the crowd realized that this person was actually so amazing. At the same time, some people who knew the inside story also shook their heads slightly. The stupidest thing that the Yu Nu Palace had done was to use such an amazing talent like this as an object. Such a person was used to rope in, okay? It was a pity that Lu Fengxian was a good friend of Chu Xiu, and it was the kind of friendship that went through life and death together. If Chu Xiu couldn't survive this time, perhaps Lu Fengxian would also be buried in it. On a barren hill not far from the crowd, there was a high vantage point. It was also a good place to watch the battle, but there were not many people gathered here. The reason was very simple. This place had been occupied by someone, and it was someone that most people couldn't afford to offend. The Jiannan king of Sword King City, Dugli, stood with his hands behind his back. Beside him, Fang Qishao sat cross-legged, pretending to watch the battle carefully. However, when Dugli wasn't paying attention, he would take out an exquisite wine gourd and take a sip. "Seventh young master, what do you think?" At this time, Dugli suddenly spoke, scaring Fang Qishao so much that his hand trembled, and quite a bit of wine spilled on his hand. This made him feel conflicted. Should he lick it or not? It seemed like he hadn't washed his hands after peeing just now. Hearing Dugli's words, Fang Qishao subconsciously said, "How else can I look at it? With my eyes, of course." Dugli glared at him. "I'm asking you, what do you think of this battle?" Fang Qishao hurriedly sat up straight, coughed, and said, "To be honest, in my opinion, this battle is simply inexplicable. Until now, no one knows why that old monk, Jingchan Zhizong, wanted to kill Chu Xiu. This time, the Subodhi monastery didn't say anything about it either. They only used the excuse of killing evil demons. In any case, I don't believe it. If they really wanted to kill evil demons, would they have stayed in the moon-worshipping sect until now? Everything started from that inexplicable battle. Moreover, with Chu Xiu's personality, he will endure silently, but he won't swallow his blood. Therefore, revenge is inevitable for him. This battle is very normal." Dugali paused, then suddenly said, "I know that Chu Xiu is your good friend. From your tone, it seems like you're on Chu Xiu's side. However, seventh young master, you have to remember that you're the future successor of Sword King City. If Chu Xiu was still a junior of the Yinma clan and you guys couldn't pull him away, we would have turned a blind eye. In any case, you've crossed the line more than once. But now, look at Chu Xiu's power. How is he still a junior? He already has the attitude of a tyrant of the demonic path. From the destruction of the Kunlun devil cult until now, apart from the moon-worshipping sect and the 9 heavenly mountains' 5 great sky fiends, his power is the greatest. If you continue to be involved with him at this time, I'm afraid you'll attract the dissatisfaction of some righteous sections." Fang Qishao raised his eyebrows and said, "Ancestor, you're already so old, why are you still like that bunch of ox noses from the Chunyang Dao sect? Why do you think everything is black and white?" Duguli said indifferently, "I'm not that pedantic. Even when I first stepped into the pugilistic world, I didn't believe in black and white stupid words. But you should know that in this pugilistic world, there will be evil, and there will be yin and yang. You don't have to choose black and white, but you still have to choose a side. Just like the 2 blades on the sword, you can only use one of them to hurt people. Right now, the righteous path's blade is sharper, so even if my Sword King City doesn't belong to the righteous path, we still have to stand on the righteous path's side. Unless Duguweiwei reappears and changes the situation, it's already clear which side my Sword King City should stand on." Fang Qishao's expression became a bit serious. He said in a deep voice, "Why must we choose? Can't my Sword King City choose our own path? Ancestor, you seem to have forgotten one thing. A sword is used to stab. Even without the 2 blades, it can still hurt people." Duguli glared at him. "You're talking back. If I tell you to watch, then watch carefully. Although that Chu Xiu's methods are indeed mysterious and he is still able to revive after being blasted into smithereens, with Luo Mo's help this time around he will undoubtedly be defeated. Even if he is able to revive once more, the foundation under him will definitely be destroyed." Fang Qishao narrowed his eyes. "I don't think so. I understand Chu Xiu. He's never an impulsive person, nor is he someone who thinks too highly of himself. Since he dared to come here and accept the challenge, he definitely has more tricks up his sleeves. Although I don't know what he'll do, I don't believe he'll lose so easily. Ancestor, why don't we make a bet? If Chu Xiu survives this time, you won't be able to confine me for a year. I also want the Western Domain's Moon Pond's drunken moon grape wine to brew 100 jars. On the other hand, if I lose, I'll take the initiative to enter the Sword Pavilion and enter seclusion for a year to practice sword arts. What do you think?" Dugali looked at Fang Qishao in surprise. Why was he so confident in Chu Xiu? However, there were very few opportunities for this kid to stay in the sect and cultivate, so Dugali simply nodded and said, "All right, I'll bet with you." Fang Qishao looked in the direction of the fight between Chu Xiu and Ling Yunzi and muttered, Brother Chu, my year of happiness will depend on you." Chapter 894. Fang Qishao had confidence in Chu Xiu, but it did not mean that others had confidence in Chu Xiu. Many people could see that Chu Xiu's side seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. Ling Yunzi was suppressing Chu Xiu with his half-step heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm strength. Although the others could still have some advantages, Chu Xiu's side was not strong to begin with. Even with the help of the Blue Dragon Society's array formation, the lower-level warriors were already losing ground and could only barely hold on. Ling Yunzi's body shone with pure yang starlight. With a casual punch, the powerful force sent Chu Xiu flying. Looking at Chu Xiu, Ling Yunzi said in a low voice, "What are you still holding on for? This battle should be over. If we continue to persist, it will only end in a situation where both sides will suffer. My Chunyang Dao sect will lose a lot of strength, but can you bear to see something happen to your subordinates? Can you bear to see something happen to your good friend, Lu Fengxian, who fought to the death for you?" Although Ling Yunzi had the upper hand at the moment, he did not look down on Chu Xiu with the attitude of a victor. He did not declare that he was the victor and ask him to surrender. What Ling Yunzi said just now was the truth. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, it would actually be a lose-lose situation if they really continued to fight. Even if they killed Chu Xiu and Chunyang Dao sect regained its reputation, Chang Yunzi would not come back to life. More warriors would die in this third war between the righteous and demonic paths. Therefore, even if he stopped a moment earlier, he could still save a lot of losses. At this moment, Chu Xiu did not seem to panic at all. He merely said indifferently, "Who said that I can't hold on any longer?" Sect leader Ling Yunzi, "I'm afraid the one who can't hold on later should be you. Haven't you noticed that something is missing here?" Hearing this, Ling Yunzi suddenly realized something. For the first time, the expression on his face changed. At this moment, in front of Hedong County's vast sun peak, groups of Blue Dragon Society assassins wearing black clothes, black iron masks, and black iron conical bamboo hats were all gathered here. 90% of the martial artists in the Blue Dragon Society headquarters and all of the elite martial artists of the 36 Big Dipper divisions were present, numbering in the thousands. All the assassins of the Blue Dragon Society were existences that had taken hundreds of lives in their hands. The killing intent on their bodies was incomparably dense. With so many people gathered together, it had even reached the point of affecting the weather. The vast sun peak that was originally clear and boundless was now covered in dark clouds, abnormally terrifying. In front of the Pure Yang Palace, a middle-aged Taoist priest looked at the dense black figures below and felt the soaring killing intent. He was almost out of breath by the powerful momentum. Didn't the sect master bring people to destroy the Blue Dragon Society? Then why were so many elites of the Blue Dragon Society still gathered here? Behind the middle-aged Taoist priest was a group of young Taoist priests. They were all clamoring to open the mountain gate and behead this group of villains. But at this time, the middle-aged Taoist priest shouted angrily, "All of you shut up." This group of young Taoist priests were newborn calves that were not afraid of tigers. They knew the terror of the elite assassins of the Blue Dragon Society. With Ling Yunzi's departure, he almost took away all the elites in the sect. At present, there were only a few people left in the sect like him who did not have strong combat power. Usually, they could only read Dao scriptures for some Taoist children and the like. Although the Pure Yang Palace or the entire vast sun peak had countless arrays, but in the face of so many Blue Dragon Society assassins, although the array could operate automatically, its power could not be compared with its peak state. The middle-aged Taoist priest roared, "Quickly go and activate the array." Several disciples hurriedly went to activate the array, and in an instant, the entire vast sun peak shone brightly. But the complexion of the middle-aged Taoist priest was getting worse and worse. A part of the array in the Pure Yang Palace also needed to be controlled by people. But at present, there were only Taoist priests like him who had no combat power left in the Pure Yang Palace. There were also some young disciples who had not even left the mountain gate. How could they control this kind of thing? So after activating the array, the middle-aged Taoist priest immediately began to use a secret method to send a message to Ling Yunzi and the others for help. At the foot of the mountain, Duanmu Qianshan raised his head and looked at the vast sun peak. Perhaps even he did not expect that one day, the Blue Dragon Society would dare to attack the Chunyang Dao sect. Of course, it was not that the Blue Dragon Society had not done this before. Previously, Bu Tianan even dared to attack the Great Light Temple. But that time, it was purely because Bu Tianan had gone crazy. This time, they only made their move after going through Chu Xiu's careful calculations. To be honest, Duanmu Qianshan had no idea in his heart whether he would win or lose this battle. Chu Xiu's side was a battlefield, and his side was also a battlefield. But the final victory or defeat still depended on whether Chu Xiu could hold on. If he could not hold on, even if they attacked the Pure Yang Palace, it would be useless. But now that Duanmu Qianshan had made a choice, there was no turning back. He took a deep breath and spat out a word, "Kill." With a command, a group of assassins from the Blue Dragon Society killed in the direction of the Pure Yang Palace without saying a word. They were silent, but their eyes were filled with excitement and murderous intent. These people were the elites of the Blue Dragon Society. Each of them was like a killing god. Usually, ordinary tasks could not arouse their interest. This time, attacking the Chunyang Dao sect, if it was someone else, would definitely think that this was an extremely crazy thing. But for the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society, it was a challenge that excited them. At the same time, in the southern land, in front of the Subhuti Monastery, Ren Qianxiu led tens of thousands of phaseless demon sect disciples, 2 true fire spirit refinement realm powerhouses who had a good relationship with Wei Shuya, and some rogue demonic cultivators who had a good relationship with Wei Shuya. They directly besieged the Subhuti Monastery. This could be said to be the boldest thing that the Yinma clan had done in recent years. Last time, Wei Shuya asked Yi Shaonan to retaliate against Subhuti Monastery in a fit of rage. In fact, he only attacked some small southern tribes that worshipped Subhuti Monastery. He didn't directly besiege Subhuti Monastery. Looking at the Shining Temple, Ren Qianxiu suddenly sighed and said, "In the past, when our holy religion was at its peak, the monks of the Subhuti Monastery had to bow their heads when entering and exiting the southern land. Now, it has been less than 500 years, and we don't even have the courage to face the Subhuti Monastery." After sighing, Ren Qianxiu suddenly said to Mr. Lu next to him, "Lu Jin, do you think Chu Xiu can really lead our Yinma clan to regain the glory of the holy religion?" After Lu Jin stepped into the real pellet state, with his excellent means and strength, he had now become the mainstay of the phaseless demon sect. Hearing Ren Qianxiu's words, Lu Jin shook his head and said, "I don't know, probably no one can say for sure. However, Sect Master, countless outstanding talents have appeared in the Hidden Devil faction over the past 500 years. However, to be able to reach Chu Xiu's level and rise so quickly, there has never been anyone like him. Other sects have a choice, but we have no choice. Supporting Chu Xiu is our only choice." Ren Qianxiu nodded and said, "Yeah, since there is no choice, then don't hesitate to make a move. I want to see how strong the Subhuti Monastery has become over the years." As soon as he said that, tens of thousands of elites of the phaseless demon sect and the Yinma clan had already rushed toward the Subhuti Monastery. At this time, other than the old monks who were in closed-door cultivation, there was only Xiao Mok, who had just been blinded, and a few young disciples who did not have the qualifications to finish their apprenticeship. Of course, according to Subhuti Monastery standards, they were young, but in other sects, given their age, they would probably be the mainstay of the sect. But because of the particularity of the Subhuti Monastery, they were far from being able to roam the world. Sensing the demonic martial artists rushing up from the Subhuti Monastery below, Xiao Mok sighed. The Subhuti Monastery used righteousness to break evil, and joined forces with the world to attack head-on, not giving Chu Xiu a chance to breathe. But who knew that Chu Xiu's courage was bigger than they thought? He did not have much strength in his hands, but now he actually dared to split a part of his strength to attack the Subhuti Monastery. This was not just courage, it was simply madness. Xiao Mok could guess that there should be a strong force threatening the Chunyang Dao sect on the Chunyang Dao sect's side. Therefore, Chu Xiu was taking a gamble. He was betting on who would be the first to fall. He was betting on whether his side would be destroyed by the Taoist-Buddhist alliance first, or if the Pure Yang Dao sect and the Subhuti Monastery would fall first. Currently, he was the only one in the true fire spirit refinement realm who was seriously injured in the Subhuti Monastery. The other old monks who were in closed-door cultivation had not shown themselves for decades, and Xiao Mok was not sure if they were dead or not. Moreover, things like the Subhuti monastery could not be disturbed. Only when they came out of seclusion would they be alive. If they were disturbed midway, it was possible that they would become dead. With just him and the young disciples in the temple, what could they use to block it? Xiao Mok sighed and said, "Send a message to the abbot. I hope they have successfully killed Chu Xiu." At this moment, the battle in the Blue Dragon Society's battlefield was extremely intense. Shang Tianliang was already on the verge of collapse. In fact, it was already a miracle that he could withstand Luo Mo's attacks for so long. He was even on the verge of risking his life. Of course, he was not risking his life for Chu Xiu, but for the people in Shang City who were still in Green Capital. Although Ling Yunzi had been suppressing Chu Xiu, he was still unable to completely take down Chu Xiu. Moreover, he also realized that something was missing here. There were a lot of people missing. Although Ling Yunzi had not stepped into the underworld for a long time, it did not mean that he really did not understand the news in the underworld. Chu Xiu was a member of the Yinma clan. Even if the Yinma clan was in a state of disunity, it was unlikely that the entire Yinma clan only had Wei Shuya and a few others who came to help. There was also the Blue Dragon Society. As the head of the four spirits, the Blue Dragon Society was definitely not weak. However, in the entire Blue Dragon Society headquarters, most of the warriors of the Blue Dragon Society were actually controlling the formation. What about the others in the Blue Dragon Society? What about Duanmu Qianshan? A guess rose in Ling Yunzi's heart, and he could not help but feel his heart immediately sink to the bottom of the valley. Chapter 895. Sometimes, things in this world are actually very interesting. The more you don't want something to happen, the more likely it will happen. Just as Chu Xiu's side was being suppressed to the extreme, the faces of the people from Chunyang Dao sect and Subodhi monastery suddenly changed. They hurriedly went forward and passed the news to Ling Yunzi and Rama. After hearing the news, Ling Yunzi's face suddenly changed while Rama frowned slightly. Then a Buddhist seal fell and directly blasted Shang Tianliang away. Seeing the gazes of the two people, Chu Xiu already knew that his plan had succeeded. The phaseless demon sect and Duanmu Qianshan had already made their move. Chu Xiu laughed out loud. "Why don't the two of you tell me what the news is?" "All right, since you won't tell me, I'll tell you for you. The headquarters of Blue Dragon Society and the 36 Tiangang divisions have already made their move to besiege Chunyang Dao sect. I hope that the formation of Chunyang Dao sect is strong enough and can last long enough. At the same time, under the leadership of the phaseless demon sect, the Yinma clan has already gone to the southern land to attack Subodhi monastery. I heard that there are still many powerhouses in Subodhi monastery who are in closed-door cultivation. Abbot Rama, you'd better pray that those powerhouses in closed-door cultivation are still alive. Otherwise, your Subodhi monastery won't last long." As soon as this was said, the people present were in an uproar. As the saying goes, those who are closely involved can't see clearly. In fact, some people felt that something was wrong from the beginning. They even noticed that the power on Chu Xiu's side was somewhat different than Ling Yunzi's. However, they thought that this was the backup power that Chu Xiu deliberately kept, waiting for them to attack the interior of Blue Dragon Society before taking action. In the end, they only found out now that Chu Xiu actually divided such a small amount of power into three and secretly attacked Subodhi Monastery and Chunyang Dao sect. This was no longer just bold, it was simply gambling with their lives. Looking at Ling Yunzi and Luo Mo, Chu Xiu's face broke into a maniacal grin. "Abbot Luo Mo, sect leader Ling Yunzi, why aren't you saying anything? Strength was a good thing, so if one was not strong enough, they would be beaten. If I were to fight you head-on, even if I were to use all my resources, I would still be no match for you. My chances of winning are slim. But if you want to kill me, Chu Xiu, it won't be as simple as splashing blood all over my body. Now, let's see who can last until the end. I've already given the order to the Blue Dragon Society and the Phaseless Demon Sect. After breaking through the Chunyang Dao sect and the Subodhi Monastery, they'll dig 3 feet into the ground and leave no one alive. You destroyed my future, so I destroyed your ancestral land. It's very fair, isn't it? Now, let's see if the two of you have confidence in your sect's formations. Let's see if you'll destroy me first, or if my people will destroy your ancestral land first. When these words were spoken, Ling Yunzi's expression turned extremely ugly. Even though Luo Mo still had an indifferent look on his face, his eyebrows were tightly knitted together. It was obvious that he was extremely furious. This move of Chu Xiu was simply a desperate and vicious plan. However, the problem was that not only was Chu Xiu's life at stake, but the future of the Sabodi monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect was also at stake. What was the most important thing for a sect? It was very simple, it was inheritance. This inheritance didn't refer to the cultivation techniques recorded on paper or in the secret box, but to the people. If the cultivation techniques were destroyed, as long as the people were still alive, they could continue to be restored in the future. However, if a sect's younger generation disciples were all dead, even if they had cultivation techniques, where would they go to find so many suitable young disciples? Moreover, if even their ancestral grounds were destroyed, how would they have the face to see their ancestors? To kill Chu Xiu, they had to pay such a price. Was it worth it? This was something worth pondering over. Ling Yunzi took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Chu Xiu, do you know that the more you act like this, the more I want to kill you? Ruthless and vicious. It's definitely not a good thing for someone like you to appear in the devil path. You're already so difficult to deal with before you've grown to Yi Xiaonan's level. When you have Yi Xiaonan's strength, coupled with your ruthless methods, I'm afraid there will be no peace in Jianghu." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Sect leader Ling Yunzi, you're wrong. If it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't defeat you head-on, why would I use such an extreme method? If I had Yi Xiaonan's strength, I wouldn't have waited for you to attack me. Instead, I would have personally gone to Sabodi Zen Temple or Chunyang Dao sect to experience your martial arts." Ling Yunzi had said this to many people. It was normal to eliminate evil for Jianghu, but how many people were really willing to eliminate evil for Jianghu at all costs? In fact, in terms of threat, a supreme devil path powerhouse like Yi Xiaonan was undoubtedly 100 times more threatening than Chu Xiu. Although the old celestial master and Rama were defeated by him, if they really wanted to eliminate Yi Xiaonan at all costs, they might still have a chance if they fought with their lives on the line. But no matter who it was, they didn't fight with their lives on the line. Therefore, it was obvious that people were selfish. Even if Ling Yunzi wasn't selfish, Chunyang Dao sect would be too. At this time, Shi Yunzi was no longer entangled with Lu Fengxian. When he heard this news, he immediately used a secret communication method to contact Chunyang Dao sect. After getting more detailed information, his expression suddenly changed, and he shouted at Ling Yunzi, "Senior brother, stop fighting. The vast Sun Peak has been breached. Right now, everyone is defending the Pure Yang Palace, but the formation of the Pure Yang Palace won't last long. In fact, the people that Chu Xiu sent to the south were stronger. There were all the martial artists of Phaseless Demon Sect and Wei Shia who were on good terms with them. But at least Sabodi Zen Temple still had Xiao Mo, and the power of the formation was strong enough. But Chunyang Dao sect was really without a leader, and it was on the verge of destruction. Ling Yunzi let out a long breath and said, "One move. Give me time for one more move." Before he made a move, Ling Yunzi actually didn't want to fight this battle, because there was no benefit to winning or losing. But if his Chunyang Dao sect retreated like this, not only would there be no benefits, but it would also be a waste of time and effort. He would lose so many people, and he would lose his reputation. As the sect leader, other people could easily give up, but once Ling Yunzi made a decision, it was not so easy to give up. As Ling Yunzi's voice fell, the pure Yang Gang Qi bloomed around his body, but he didn't know when, but a black figure surrounded by an extremely gloomy and tyrannical aura walked out from behind him, holding a long sword in his hand. The shape was exactly the same as Ling Yunzi's pure Yang Dao sword, but it was condensed by evil qi. Everyone present was suddenly stunned. What was going on? The sect leader of Chunyang Dao sect actually cultivated demonic arts? When Shi Yunzi saw this scene, he suddenly thought of something. His face suddenly changed and he murmured, "Senior brother, you still haven't let go of that matter?" In the entire Chunyang Dao sect, only Shi Yunzi knew why Ling Yunzi had been in closed-door cultivation ever since he became the sect leader. It was not only to balance the various forces in Chunyang Dao sect, but also because he had once suffered from qi deviation. It wasn't a problem with his cultivation, but an inner demon. Back then, Ling Yunzi destroyed a diabolism sect with his own strength, and he killed every single one of them. This incident became a much-told story among the righteous Dao sects. But in fact, only Ling Yunzi knew that he had killed the wrong person. Not everyone in the diabolism was evil, but most of the righteous Dao sects were hypocrites. How many of them were truly kind? There were too many causes and effects in this, and it was hard to explain. However, in that battle with Ling Yunzi, he killed those who should be killed, and those who should not be killed, he also killed them. Although that battle brought him great fame and glory, it also brought him a lingering inner demon that he couldn't get rid of. Therefore, after taking over the Chunyang Dao sect, he began a long period of closed-door cultivation. It was called cultivation, but in fact, he was suppressing the inner demon. At first, Shi Yunzi thought that after so many years, his senior brother should have completely crushed the inner demon, but he didn't expect that he still hadn't let go of that matter. However, this inner demon was completely suppressed by Ling Yunzi, and he could even use a part of its power. In all things in the world, if there was yang, there would be yin. Pure yang was righteous, and pure yin was evil? Ling Yunzi couldn't figure this out. On the contrary, if he did, his faith in Chunyang Dao sect might collapse. The inner demon was born from his body, and its power was also his negative power. One righteous and one evil, one yin and one yang, but they formed the most basic great path in the world. Ling Yunzi and his inner demon attacked at the same time, and the two swords affected the power of the entire world, the purest power of yin and yang. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed. If someone was watching from afar, they could even see that the dark clouds in midair and the sky had condensed into the shape of a Tai Chi diagram. This sword attack shocked everyone. This was definitely the power of the mysterious realm of heaven and earth. Even Rama didn't dare to underestimate such an attack. In that instant, Chu Xiu's body immediately shone with a crimson light. The blood-red light seemed to connect the sky and the earth, and the huge pillar of blood that erupted could even be seen from more than 10 miles away. Lu Jianghu, who was in the blood soul bead, was already numb. He was the one who created the blood demon transformation technique, but he hadn't used it even once. Instead, he let Chu Xiu use it here frequently. With the eternal demon pill, Chu Xiu could be considered to be extremely unscrupulous, and he used this kind of life-risking technique without thinking. Under the endless blood-red light and demonic aura, Chu Xiu's sword slashed down. The void stagnated, and the momentum of the sword seemed to penetrate the world. Many people had heard of the power of the red dust ethereal slash. After all, it was a sword technique passed down by Dugu Weiwei in the past. With one slash, Ling Yunzi's Taoist connotation shone brightly, and he unleashed his power to the extreme. Finally, he broke free from the shackles of the sword. However, Chu Xiu's sword did not stop at all. Following the gap between the power of yin and yang, it directly slashed at Ling Yunzi's inner demon body. Although the power of yin and yang was the great path of the world, and represented the ultimate balance, Ling Yunzi's body could not achieve true balance. His inner demon body was obviously weaker than his original body in terms of power. Under the ethereal slash, the inner demon body continued to collapse, but Chu Xiu's body also continued to explode under the attack of the pure yang sword aura. However, under the effect of the eternal demon pill, it rapidly healed. This was like a tug-of-war, and it was obvious who would be the first to give up. Chapter 896. The fact that Chu Xiu was able to fight Ling Yunzi to this extent had actually exceeded many people's expectations. There were too few people who watched the battle between Chu Xiu and Chang Yunzi after his rebirth. Although the news had been leaked, the few people present did not reveal the outcome of the battle in detail. Therefore, even though the people of the pugilistic world knew that Chu Xiu's abilities had improved greatly after his rebirth and that he had cultivated his body with true fire, they did not have a direct understanding of his realm. It was only then that they saw how powerful Chu Xiu was. If it was a life-and-death battle, even the top 10 on the leaderboard would have to consider if they would be killed by Chu Xiu. Under the ethereal slash, Ling Yunzi's mental demon incarnation shattered with a loud bang. Ling Yunzi spat a mouthful of blood immediately and his face was extremely pale. Although the mental demon was a mental demon, it was Ling Yunzi's mental demon and it had used his power. Now that the mental demon incarnation had been shattered, it was equivalent to Ling Yunzi being heavily injured. Meanwhile, Chu Xiu was in a worse state than Ling Yunzi. Although he had the eternal demonic elixir, which allowed him to resist the pure Yang Sword Chi's attack with his body, in reality, the blood demon change technique and the eternal demonic elixir had almost drained all his energy and chi and blood. The reason why Chu Xiu could still stand there and confront Ling Yunzi was because of his willpower. If he were to collapse now, all his previous acting would have been in vain. Ling Yunzi wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. His aura was extremely weak. However, for some reason, although his aura was weak, it faintly harmonized with heaven and earth. Looking at Chu Xiu, Ling Yunzi coughed and spat another mouthful of blood before saying, "Although you've severely injured me by killing my mental demon incarnation, you've also helped me. Who can really tell if it's right or wrong karma? Chu Xiu, from today onwards, karma will be put aside for now. Whether it ends or there will be a battle in the end, it's all up to fate." With that, Ling Yunzi waved his hand and called the disciples of the Chunyang Dao sect and the entire Dao sect lineage to leave. He was already heavily injured. Moreover, if he didn't leave now, the Chunyang Dao sect would really be breached by the Blue Dragon Society. That would be a huge problem. Everyone else present had different expressions on their faces. Some of the true fire spirit refinement realm cultivators could already tell that Ling Yunzi was about to make a breakthrough. In the past, Ling Yunzi was also an outstanding figure in the Chunyang Dao sect. The reason why he was unable to make any progress in the past few decades was because of his inner demon. In the end, Chu Xiu killed Ling Yunzi's inner demon in this battle, which indirectly helped Ling Yunzi. Although he was currently heavily injured, once he recovered from his injuries, he reckoned that stepping into the heaven and earth profound opening realm would be a matter of course. Therefore, in this battle, although the Chunyang Dao sect couldn't kill Chu Xiu to avenge Chang Yunzi, it indirectly helped Ling Yunzi to make a breakthrough. Nobody could tell whether this was a loss or an advantage. Of course, to Chu Xiu, even if he knew the final outcome would be like this, there was nothing he could do. Ling Yunzi's strength was too strong. He had already reached the half-step heaven and earth profound opening realm. If Chu Xiu attacked his body, he might not be able to seriously injure him. On the other hand, it was much easier to kill the incarnation of the inner demon that was connected to him. Moreover, once the incarnation of the inner demon was destroyed, Ling Yunzi would be the one injured. Therefore, even if Chu Xiu knew that doing this would help Ling Yunzi, he could only do it. Without the Dao sect's attack, the pressure on Chu Xiu's side was greatly reduced. Rama shook his head gently and spat out a word. "Go!" As Rama led the people from the Subodhi monastery and the Buddhist sect to retreat, the people on Chu Xiu's side instantly heaved a sigh of relief. They were practically defending against an enemy that was several times their number. Even with the protection of the Blue Dragon Society's sect-protecting formation, the pressure was still somewhat unbearable. It could be said that if the Chunyang Dao sect hadn't retreated first and held on for a little longer, Chu Xiu's men would have collapsed. Seeing that the people from the Dao and Buddhist sects had retreated, everyone present was dumbfounded. Chu Xiu won? No, this wasn't considered a victory, but he had survived this calamity. The Subodhi monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect had to retreat without achieving anything. This result was already shocking enough. On a small mountain in the distance, Fang Qi Shao chuckled at Dugu Li. "Patriarch, what did I say? I still won the bet this time." "Ha." Dugu Li said expressionlessly, "When we return to Sword King City, go into seclusion in the Sword Pavilion for half a year. Not only do you need to cultivate your sword Dao, but you also need to tame your character. You're going to take over as the sect master in the future. If you can't even hide your emotions, how will that look? Fang Qishao stared at Duguli dumbfoundedly. Patriarch, I think I won the bet just now, right? Duguli looked at him and said plainly, you won, but I didn't keep my word. Let me teach you another lesson. In this pugilistic world, either you're stronger than others or you're more shameless than others. You're not as strong as I, and you're not as shameless as I. Then scram back and cultivate in seclusion. When Fang Qishao heard this, he looked like he had eaten tea. Moreover, he had swallowed it back after vomiting. At this moment, Chu Xiu glanced at his subordinates. Almost all of them were injured, and the number of casualties was not small. These people were Chu Xiu's elites from the Suppression Martial Hall and Guanzhong torture room. With so many casualties, it was enough to make Chu Xiu's heart ache. Of course, this wasn't the time to feel heartache. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, seal the mountain gate and inform Duanmu Qianshan and Mr. Ren of the phaseless demon sect to retreat immediately. Sabodhi Monastery and Chunyang Dao sect had already returned to defend. If they didn't leave now, it would be interesting if they met people from these two sects on the way and got wiped out. After ordering everything in an orderly manner, Chu Xiu immediately brought his men back to the Blue Dragon Society. He began to seal the mountain gate and treat the injured. Mei Qinglian walked over with a face full of exhaustion. Just as she was about to say something to Chu Xiu fell into her arms. Mei Qinglian was shocked. She hugged Chu Xiu and shook him. She said loudly, "Hey, are you going to die again?" One couldn't blame Mei Qinglian for being nervous. Chu Xiu was a little too terrifying now. His aura was extremely weak. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't even be able to sense his vitality. Wei Shuya quickly walked over to take a look. He heaved a sigh of relief. It's okay. He just used up too much energy. If it was someone else like him, they would have been crippled. However, this kid has the eternal demon pill in his body. It can protect his true spirit. As long as he has enough time, he will recover. Hearing Wei Shuya's words, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Right now, Chu Xiu was their backbone. If something really happened to Chu Xiu, they really wouldn't know what to do. On the other hand, Chu Xiu had sealed off the Blue Dragon Society. However, the storm in the Jianghu hadn't passed yet. The Taoist and Buddhist sects had such a huge formation, but Chu Xiu had survived it. Moreover, he had done it in such a way. It did sound a little unbelievable. However, the others couldn't help but admire Chu Xiu. If it had been other forces, they probably wouldn't have done what Chu Xiu did. It was as if they had gambled with their lives. Although Chu Xiu won in the end, Chunyang Dao sect and Sabodhi Monastery suffered some damage. However, it wasn't serious. Most of the damage was on the formation. They came back in time. Chu Xiu also retreated in time. Apart from this, there was also a huge change on the Wind Cloud list. The biggest change was the change in the number 1 position on the Wind Cloud list. It changed from Ying Sanshu of the Ying clan to Ling Yunzi of Chunyang Dao sect. In the battle with Chu Xiu, Ling Yunzi's strength was undoubtedly revealed. He was definitely only half a step away from reaching the mysterious heaven and earth realm. After Chu Xiu destroyed his inner demon incarnation, it was only a matter of time before he broke through to the mysterious heaven and earth realm. It was only a matter of time before he broke through to the heaven and earth illumination realm. Hence, his title of number 1 on the leaderboard was well-deserved. Moreover, he wouldn't be able to sit on this position for long. After all, he would have to stay on the sovereign leaderboard after breaking through to the heaven and earth illumination realm. The one who changed the most was Chu Xiu. He was placed 6th on the Wind Cloud list by Wind Sweeping Tower. In fact, no one could tell Chu Xiu's true combat strength. He had too many trump cards. No one knew where his limits were. In any case, most people thought that Ling Yunzi was stronger than Chu Xiu in the battle with Ling Yunzi. Chu Xiu risked his life and only managed to kill one of Ling Yunzi's inner demon incarnations. If the battle had continued, it was hard to tell who would be the winner. However, Ling Yunzi didn't have time at that time. If the battle had continued, Chunyang Dao sect would be in danger. However, what troubled Wind's sweeping tower even more was how to deal with the mysterious heaven and earth realm existence that Chu Xiu found. Logically speaking, one would be qualified to be listed on the sovereign list once he entered the mysterious heaven and earth realm. However, it was only a qualification. It didn't mean that everyone in the mysterious heaven and earth realm was qualified to be a martial arts world supreme. After all, the prerequisite to becoming a martial arts world supreme was to have a force that could stand at the peak of the underworld. So what was Shang Tianliang? Was he a member of the Hidden Devil clan or a secluded expert? These were all mysteries. They didn't even know Shang Tianliang's name. In the entire underworld, the only people who knew Shang Tianliang's background were Lu Changlu and the others. However, those who knew Shang Tianliang's background didn't say a word. Lu Changlu didn't say a word because he didn't want to meddle in other people's business. If he did, it would only add to his troubles. Meanwhile, Granny Flower Ghost didn't say a word because she returned to the Rakshasa sect after leaving Green Capital. The conflict between the Central Plains warriors was too far away from her. As for why LV Zhanlu and Helian Changfeng didn't say a word, it was because they had their own plans. To them, since Chu Xiu could enter the Green Capital space again and even abduct a mysterious heaven and earth realm existence, they might be able to do it too. Therefore, during this period of time, they had been researching in this area. They wanted to see if they could get a heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm fighter to be their bodyguard like Chu Xiu. Of course, if they really managed to bring another mysterious heaven and earth realm powerhouse out of Green Capital, they might be the first ones to regret it. After all, not everyone in Green Capital was as special as Shang Tianliang and had something to worry about. Chapter 897. At this time, Chu Xiu had no idea what was going on in the outside world because he was dreaming. That dream was very strange. He actually dreamed of all kinds of memories from his previous life on Earth. It was very real, but in the end he dreamed of two people. One of them was Dugu Weiwa, who had once appeared in his illusion. Dugu Weiwa was in the middle of a boundless sea of blood, and he was like a demonic god. His entire body was enveloped by extreme negative emotions, and it was as if he was the master of this Yellow Springs blood sea. Countless evil spirits wailed beneath his feet. But at the same time, he saw another scene. Dugu Weiwa was actually tied up in a huge palace. Dragon-shaped chains were wrapped around his 4 limbs, waist, and abdomen. The chains were tightly constricting, as if they were afraid that he would escape. At the same time, there were all kinds of forces in the palace blasting his body. Ice, wind, thunder, fire, yin, and yang were simply endless. But at this time, Dugu Weiwei was laughing wildly. It was a kind of laughter that contained arrogance, mockery, and other emotions. It was incomparably heroic. Although he had the same face as Dugu Weiwei in the Sea of Blood, his temperament was completely different, as if they were two different people. Just as Chu Xiu was about to get closer to see what the palace that imprisoned him looked like, he suddenly woke up. "Young Master Chu, you're finally awake." Mu Zi was guarding Chu Xiu, and seeing that Chu Xiu had woken up, her eyes immediately showed a look of surprise. Rubbing his head, Chu Xiu took a cup of water from Mu Zi and drank it in one gulp, then coughed and said, "How long has it been now? Has there been any unusual movements in the pugilistic world?" Mu Zi said, "It has been 10 days, but there have been no unusual movements. After the battle with the Blue Dragon Society, Chunyang Dao sect and Sabodhi Monastery did not come out of it without losses. After returning to their sects, they did not take any action again. In fact, Chunyang Dao sect has already begun to seal their mountains, and they are not accepting visitors." Chu Xiu nodded. It was more or less what he had expected. As long as he survived this time, the Taoist and Buddhist sects should not continue to take action. However, at this time, although Chu Xiu had woken up, his body was currently overdrawn. It had to be said that the blood demon transformation technique that Lu Jianghu developed was indeed powerful, but the consumption was also abnormally shocking. Only Chu Xiu, who had cultivated the undying demon pill, would dare to play such a game. If it were Lu Jianghe, he would probably be ready to reconstruct his body after using this technique. Therefore, now that Chu Xiu had woken up, he still had to use some time to recuperate from his injuries. Seeing that Chu Xiu was about to go into seclusion, Mu Zi left obediently. The others were still waiting for Chu Xiu's news. However, after Mu Zi left, Chu Xiu focused his mind on the blood soul bead and asked Lu Jianghe, who was in a daze, "What kind of person is Dugu Weiwei? Don't say those words of praise, I'm asking you about his true character." The scene in the dream had left a very deep impression on Chu Xiu. In fact, Chu Xiu could even be sure that it was not a dream, but an image that he had seen through some mysterious connection. Because of this, Chu Xiu was puzzled. There were two Dugu Weiwei. One was in the yellow springs of the Blood Sea, while the other was imprisoned in a palace, suffering from the torture of the power of heaven and earth. Although they were the same person, the aura they emitted was completely different. Moreover, the bigger question was, who could imprison an existence like Dugu Weiwei? Among the people around Chu Xiu, the only one who had seen Dugu Weiwei was Lu Jianghe. Therefore, Chu Xiu could only ask him questions. Lu Jianghe was in a daze at the moment. When Chu Xiu spoke, he almost shivered in fear. Chu Xiu did not know if it was because Lu Jianghe had been cooped up in the blood soul bead for 500 years, but Lu Jianghe was very talkative at times, which annoyed Chu Xiu a lot. Therefore, Chu Xiu would sometimes use his mental strength to block the blood soul bead. During this time, Lu Jianghe was in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking, but he would sneer, laugh wildly, or even laugh foolishly from time to time. Glaring at Chu Xiu, Lu Jianghe said angrily, "Didn't you ask this question?" Of course, the sect leader has the character of the sect leader. Domineering, decisive, and unparalleled in wit. What else can he be? Chu Xiu said, "That's not what I'm asking you about. I'm asking about his character when it comes to dealing with people, such as whether he's vicious, petty or magnanimous, bold or gloomy." Lu Jianghe thought for a while and said, "It's hard to say. How can the sect leader's character be so easy to guess? In the eyes of most of the saints' warriors, the sect leader is almost perfect. Whether or not the cult leader was truly vicious, no one could say for sure. After all, there were quite a number of people in the Kunlun demon sect who were saved by the cult leader. For example, Heartless Demon Lord. But outside, when it comes to destroying a family, the sect leader is your ancestor. Those who follow him will prosper, and those who oppose him will perish. That is not just for show. If you say one wrong thing, your whole family will be killed. It is not like the sect leader has never done something like that before. As for whether or not he is stingy, I think he is. Otherwise, I would not have been imprisoned here." Chu Xiu looked at Lu Jianghe and did not say anything. He did not seem to have realized what he had done wrong. Dugu Weiwei had not killed him, and that was already very generous. Lu Jianghe continued, "As for whether the sect leader is heroic or not, it depends on the person. For example, the sect leader admired sword sage Gu Qingqing very much. Even when Gu Qingqing died, she said, 'It's a pity,' 3 times. It was the same when he faced Ning Xuanji's challenge. Although Ning Xuanji, the old Taoist, did have some skills, the real martial cult was not strong at that time. As long as the sect leader said the word, the Kunlun devil cult could easily destroy the real martial cult, which would affect Ning Xuanji's performance. However, the sect leader did not do that. He even ordered us not to cause trouble for the real martial cult. But sometimes, cult master is also very narrow-minded. If someone came to find trouble with cult master while shouting the slogan of exterminating the evil and defending the Tao, cult master would cripple their martial arts and strip them naked before displaying them in front of the Kunlun devil sect's entrance. Glancing at Chu Xiu, Lu Jianghe said, "That's why there won't be an answer to this question of yours. At the sect leader's level, he naturally does whatever he wants. His personality is completely determined by his mood. However, compared to the sect leader, you still have an advantage. You're even more shameless than the sect leader." You don't have to say the last sentence. It's unnecessary. After saying that, Chu Xiu's mind left the blood soul orb. The Dugu Weiwei that Lu Jiang he saw was Dugu Weiwei. The Dugu Weiwei that he saw in his dream could also be Dugu Weiwei. He was afraid that he would not be able to get an answer for the time being. In the eyes of others, a person could have 1,000 different faces. Different people from different positions could see different personalities. Chu Xiu simply did not think about these messy things for now. Instead, he would first recover from his injuries before talking about anything else. With the indestructible magic pill, Chu Xiu's injuries recovered extremely quickly. In just half a month's time, he had almost recovered to his peak. After coming out of seclusion, a group of people were waiting for Chu Xiu. Although the battle with the Blue Dragon Society had passed, the aftermath was still there. As for how to deal with it, it still needed Chu Xiu to decide. Seeing that Chu Xiu had come out of seclusion, Wei Shuya was the first to smile and say, "Brat Chu Xiu, it's good that you're fine. You don't have to worry about this old man here. If you win this battle, then everything will be easy to talk about with Yin Mo. The internal problems of the Yin Mo clan were actually the easiest to solve." Previously, Siduchi and the others all looked as if Chu Xiu would implicate the entire Yin Mo clan, and even dared to run over to Chu Xiu's side to complain. But now that Chu Xiu's achievements had come out, everyone immediately fell silent. Especially Shang Tianliang, this was a deterrent on the level of a nuclear bomb. This was because they couldn't figure out whether Shang Tianliang was a member of the Yin Mo clan or an expert that Chu Xiu had invited from somewhere. If it was the former, then it would be fine. Everyone belonged to the Yin Mo clan, so they still had to follow the rules. However, if it was the latter, but the other party was only Chu Xiu's people, then it would be troublesome. Other than Wei Shuya, the others weren't too troublesome. Previously, some people coveted the Guanzhong torture room, but after Chu Xiu's achievements came out, those people were so scared that they didn't dare to do anything. Some people were even so scared that they directly fled. The Blue Dragon Society suffered some losses because of the attack on the Chunyang Dao sect, but it wasn't serious. On the contrary, the Blue Dragon Society's reputation greatly increased because of this. In the past, when the Blue Dragon Society was in Bu Tiannan's hands, it actually only had some deterrent power to some small forces in the underworld. As for the real big sects, it wasn't too strong a deterrent. After all, the Blue Dragon Society didn't have too strong of a record, and Bu Tiannan's reputation had even faintly suppressed the Blue Dragon Societies. Now that the Blue Dragon Society's headquarters and the 36 Big Dipper Division's killers came together and actually dared to attack the Chunyang Dao sect, that power was simply shocking. At the same time, it also let the entire underworld see the true strength of the Blue Dragon Society. This battle could be considered as making a name for themselves. As for the Jianghu Hall, Chu Xiu should find a chance to return to the Jianghu Hall. The trouble of the Jianghu Hall didn't lie with others, but with the Northern Yan Imperial Court and that Lord Xiang Long. It was estimated that the other party had wanted to get rid of the Jianghu Hall for a long time. Taking advantage of the news of Chu Xiu's death, they could completely get rid of the Jianghu Hall. At this time, Shang Tianliang also came over and said with a serious expression, "Chu Xiu, it's time to fulfill your promise and bring some people out of the mall." Previously, Chu Xiu had said that as long as Shang Tianliang helped him block this time, Chu Xiu would once again go to the Green Capital space and bring some people out of the mall. During this time, Shang Tianliang had been watching this matter, but Chu Xiu hadn't woken up yet, so he couldn't urge him. Now that Chu Xiu had finally woken up, it was time to fulfill his promise. This kind of thing was a small matter for Chu Xiu, and it wasn't a big deal to only bring some people out of the mall. Therefore, Chu Xiu first went back to the mall with Shang Tianliang and brought out 1/10 of the mall's residents. These 10% of people were not Shang Tianliang's trusted aides, nor were they experts. On the contrary, they were the old, the weak, the women, the children, and the weak. People like them were the most dangerous in Emerald City, so the first people Shang Tianliang brought out were them. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.